The path of bloodshed, slaughtering a path into the heavens. The path of bloodshed, slaughtering a path into the heavens. At that moment Lin Feng was releasing a powerful and murderous aura. It was piercing through the air and rustling through the peach trees whose leaves fluttered, as if they were flinching away. Yan Yupingsheng was looking at Lin Feng and smiling. On the continent, many people had become killers but few of them had become murderous demons. Someone who walked the path of bloodshed would have a monstrous cultivation. There was a legend that said in ancient times, there was an evil deity, he was a true murderous demon, he had slaughtered so many people that entire country became a bloodbath. In the end, nobody knew where he was now. It was said that he broke through to the Tianqi layer. But those were only rumors and Yan Yupingsheng didn't know more than that. After all, he hadn't broken through to the Tianqi layer yet. Besides, Lin Feng had already started walking on the path of bloodshed. If people wanted to kill him, he would kill them. Yan Yupingsheng could also feel the murderous aura surrounding Lin Feng. Therefore, he decided to explain these things to Lin Feng. Since Lin Feng couldn't undo his actions and he wouldn't run away, he decided to tell him about the path of bloodshed. Lin Feng, I will play a tune for you, said Yan Yupingsheng. Lin Feng then nodded and replied, okay. Yan Yupingsheng stretched his hand and stroked the table. Immediately after, both the table and the chessboard between them disappeared. Then, he grabbed his zither which was on his back and placed it between them. Lin Feng was still sitting opposite Yan Yupingsheng, he remained motionless. He only saw Yan Yupingsheng's fingers which started to float across the strings of the zither. The first sound spread in the atmosphere and a sharp light appeared which made Lin Feng shiver. The first note contained deadly energy. Then Yan Yupingsheng's fingers started to dance above the strings of the zither. The deadly energy was becoming more and more powerful. Lin Feng was welcoming that energy, unceasingly absorbing it. At the same time, around his body, a sharp qi emerged and seemed to move with the melody of the zither. Yan Yupingsheng didn't raise his head, he was focused on playing the zither. The deadly energy had invaded the entire atmosphere and didn't stop emerging from the zither. It was so quick, Yan Yupingsheng's fingers were moving with extreme speed across the strings, besides he was still accelerating, and the deadly energy was becoming stronger and stronger, more and more aggressive. Very quickly, Lin Feng's heart was filled with the sensation of murder and destruction. There was nothing else left in his heart except for complete annihilation. The heartless and emotionless deadly energy turned into a white qi which enveloped Lin Feng's body, just like a cocoon. It was dazzling. If other people had been there, they would have noticed that the murderous aura surrounding Lin Feng had been replaced with deadly energy. Lin Feng had already been enveloped by that deadly energy. The threads of deadly energy were becoming more and more numerous and they were unceasingly penetrating into Lin Feng's body. Besides, the trees of the peach orchard also looked like they were affected. A multitude of holes were appearing on the leaves of each and every single one of them. Even the petals of the peach trees in blossom looked like they were dying, as if their life was being sucked from them. Everything seemed to be fading. There was only a deadly energy which emanated the aura of death. In the middle of that deadly energy, Lin Feng first tried to resist but then it became too powerful. Lin Feng had already stopped resisting. He closed his eyes and his entire body was drowned into the murderous power contained within that energy. Yan Yupingsheng raised his head and smiled even more while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had entered into a trance-like state. Lin Feng was learning much quicker than Yan Yupingsheng had expected. No wonder that he had already reached his current cultivation despite being so young. He also had an incredible battle ability. Lin Feng had an extraordinary power of understanding which transcended the realm of understanding. However, Yan Yupingsheng didn't stop at all. In his life, he had met many geniuses. He had only chosen 3 students to teach his knowledge of cultivation and music but he couldn't help to favor Lin Feng the most. He appreciated Lin Feng's temperament the most. Lin Feng was grateful to those who helped him and was naturally kind-hearted, but he would also slaughter anyone who tried to cause him harm. All of Yan Yupingsheng's students had high natural abilities but their way of thinking and the way they handled things were different. Even though one of his other students had high natural abilities and was kind-hearted, but also a ruthless killer, he still lacked determination. There was something missing. Then, there was Duan Xin Yi. She was good, honest, and kind-hearted, but she was a woman born into the imperial clan. She was too weak. She could play the zither very well, but she wasn't taught how to cultivate. Then, there was his third student, Lin Feng. He had noticed him from the first day they met at the academy. He immediately had a positive impression. In his heart, he immediately knew that he would take him as a student, otherwise, he wouldn't have made such great efforts to guide him. Besides, each time Lin Feng saw him, he shouted "Teacher," which made him feel very gratified. The murderous energy had enveloped the earth and the sky. Yan Yuping Sheng was still playing the zither, without stopping. Lin Feng's eyes were tightly closed, deadly energy was still penetrating into his body. He was using his heart to listen and his soul to understand. The tune is named Cosmic Annihilation. As long as I play, the deadly energy will continue to increase. I am interested to see how long you can study it. Sighed Yan Yuping Sheng. He slowly closed his eyes and continued to play the zither. That song, Cosmic Annihilation, had no end, it could go on forever. The zither continued to release deadly energy which was gaining in strength and intensity. Both of them had their eyes closed, they had long ago lost all notion of time. One of them was playing, the other was listening, and in the surrounding atmosphere, there was only deadly energy. Outside of the peach orchard, in the distance, some members of the Celestial Academy raised their heads and looked at the atmosphere above the peach orchard. They were extremely surprised. What a monstrous energy! Thought many people while shivering. A powerful and deadly energy had surprisingly risen there in the sky, it was dashing to the skies. It looked like the deadly energy was filling the atmosphere as it emitted whistling sounds as it expanded across the sky. It was even destroying the air which blocked its path. What's going on over there? People who were sensing that energy were more and more numerous. They were astonished. That energy was terrifying, it was even attempting to destroy the atmosphere itself. At that moment, a silhouette appeared, that person was moving through the sky. That person then threw a rock into the white light of the energy. The crowd suddenly saw a rock fall into the energy. In a flash, it was disintegrated into powder and was destroyed. As before, only the deadly energy was left. That windstorm of deadly energy had appeared above a manor of the Celestial Academy, it had transformed into a storm. It looked amazing. Everybody was astonished. An incredible number of people started walking towards the peach orchard, they wanted to see what was going on. However, at that moment, a silhouette appeared in the sky, and when they saw the storm of deadly energy, they frowned. "It's the vice principal is here," said the people when they saw that silhouette in the sky. They wanted to know what was going on. Longding glanced at the crowd and said, "The principal is cultivating, he's the one releasing that deadly energy. There is nothing strange, get back to what you were doing please. The principal is cultivating." No wonder, many people nodded as if it was natural. After what had happened before, they all knew who the principal was, Yan Yuping Sheng. He had been able to make the strong cultivators of the Wanshou sect run away with only a single sentence. He was able to kill Xian-level beasts in an instant, while remaining sat on a cushion in the sky. The principal can release such a monstrous energy while cultivating, it's astonishing. If I tried to go into it, I would probably be disintegrated into powder and die. Thought many people, they were scared by that energy, they were even more scared of Yan Yuping Sheng. In the middle of the peach orchard, the two figures still had their eyes closed, they had been there all day. Yan Yuping Sheng looked deathly pale, he had consumed a great deal of his energy. Playing the zither didn't require him to use his pure qi, but it required a great deal of mental strength. He had lost a great deal of his vitality. An ordinary person couldn't play the Cosmic Annihilation for more than a short moment. Yan Yuping Sheng was extremely strong, but he had never played the Cosmic Annihilation for so long, he had no more strength remaining. Nonetheless, he continued playing. Since Lin Feng was still in his trance, how could Yan Yuping Sheng stop? Even though stopping wouldn't wake Lin Feng from his trance, it would cause Lin Feng's insights to be of much lower quality. The best thing was for him to continue playing, so that Lin Feng's understanding of deadly energy would grow even stronger. The crowd surrounding the peach orchard had started moving back. The storm of deadly energy hadn't stopped, it was even becoming denser and covering a larger area. Nobody dared approach the region surrounding the peach orchard any longer. The crowd surrounding the peach orchard had started moving back. The storm of deadly energy hadn't stopped, it was even becoming denser and covering a larger area. Nobody dared approach the region surrounding the peach orchard any longer. In the distance, the crowd of the Celestial Academy were still watching patiently. They were fixedly staring at that deadly energy moving through the air. It was terrifying. Their principal, Yan Yupingsheng, seemed to be cultivating a powerful skill, but what kind of skill exactly? That terrifying deadly energy seemed like it wanted to annihilate everything. How could the crowd know that inside the energy their principal's face had already turned deathly pale? He was as pale as a sheet of paper. Yan Yupingsheng was extremely strong, but at that moment, he looked like he was going to collapse from exhaustion. Lin Feng had been sitting in meditation for 2 days already, and hadn't emerged from his trance a single time. His eyes were tightly closed and the deadly energy surrounding his body was becoming denser with each passing moment. It was terrifying. Lin Feng, if you don't emerge out of your meditation trance soon, I really fear that I will die of exhaustion, thought Yan Yupingsheng with a painful smile on his face. Even though he was thinking that way, his fingers were still unceasingly dancing over the strings of his zither. The sky was gradually becoming darker and darker, but the storm of white deadly energy was still illuminating the atmosphere. It was strangely beautiful. Even though their principal was still practicing without rest, many of the students had already grown tired of waiting and went back to their living quarters to rest. In the middle of the peach orchard, the qi around Yan Yupingsheng's body was becoming restless and the smile of agony had grown so large that it transformed his face. Ka! Xing! 2 consecutive sounds emerged in the darkness. Black blood suddenly burst out of Yan Yupingsheng's mouth. He had spared no effort, but he had finally reached his limit. Blood was dripping from his fingers. On top of that, from the zither strings that had been dyed red, one of them broke. He finally stopped playing the cosmic annihilation. However, the deadly energy that had gathered in the atmosphere was still as powerful as before. It was even scary for him to behold. His heartbeat finally started to decrease. Yan Yupingsheng looked at Lin Feng, whose eyes were still closed, and shook his head. That monster! He still hadn't woken up. When would he emerge from his trance? At that moment, Lin Feng had banished all distracting thoughts from his mind. He had forgotten about all 10,000 things of creation. In his mind, there was only a black sword floating in the nothingness. That sword had appeared again, but this time, while looking at it, Lin Feng had gained a deeper understanding of it. The sword was created solely from deadly energy. Lin Feng had never really understood the warlord's sword, but each time he tried, he would only gain a small insight into the sword. At that moment, it seemed like that black sword was in harmony with the deadly energy in Lin Feng's heart. It was filled with endless murderous intent. Sirrr! Sirrr! Lin Feng opened his eyes. A sword started to form in front of his eyes. It was being filled with an endless quantity of deadly energy. Boom! Yan Yupingsheng's body was violently blown back and the stone chair on which he was sitting exploded into dust. He quickly retreated to a safe distance. In his eyes, a sharp light was twinkling. That deadly energy was monstrously strong. Lin Feng's determination to kill created an incredible pressure which formed into deadly energy. In darkness of the night, such a thing was extremely scary. Yan Yupingsheng raised his head and saw Lin Feng's body rise into the air. It seemed like the deadly energy couldn't harm him at all. What surprised Yan Yupingsheng even more was that in front of Lin Feng, a sword was still condensing. Suddenly, a pure qi sword appeared, but it was black. A black sword. Yan Yupingsheng was fixedly staring at that sword. It was filled with monstrously strong deadly energy and murderous intent. A strong wind started whistling in the air. Yan Yupingsheng was astonished. He only saw that the deadly energy in the atmosphere started rushing into that black sword. That black sword was absorbing the deadly energy. What? What's that? Yan Yupingsheng didn't understand. How was that possible? How could that black sword suddenly absorb all of that deadly energy to increase its own strength? Lin Feng's eyes were pitch black and looked ice cold, but they were filled with murder. That was the sword from his celestial book, just like the grim fire. The sword that he formed before with his limited understanding had never reached such an incredible level. The black sword slowly started moving and rose into the air above Lin Feng. It seemed like it even wanted to destroy the darkness covering the sky. The people who hadn't left in the surrounding region were astonished. They could all feel that there was a terrifying sword filled with deadly energy that wanted to destroy everything, including them. People raised their heads and saw that above the manor, a sword light was becoming more and more intense. It seemed like there was a sword, but they couldn't quite see it. It was too dark and the sword itself was black, which caused it to blend with the darkness. The crowd could only see a blurry silhouette, but that silhouette didn't look like Yan Yupingsheng, it looked like a young man. It was Lin Feng. What? Why would Lin Feng be there? I must be seeing things, thought the people who could see clearly, while shaking their heads. They immediately refused to believe their eyes. Even though Lin Feng had high natural abilities and was incredibly powerful, he did not have the power to create such an incredible amount of deadly energy to form a sword. The level of that sword was just too scary. The people in the crowd weren't the only ones who couldn't believe it. Yan Yupingsheng also couldn't believe his eyes. That sword already had a will of its own. Its will was. Yan Yupingsheng didn't dare to even think about it. It seemed Lin Feng had stepped into the next cultivation dimension. Yan Yupingsheng had always wanted to break through to the next cultivation dimension. He knew that in order to reach the realm of an authentically powerful cultivator, he had to penetrate into that dimension. It was his ultimate goal on his path of cultivation. Lin Feng, come down, shouted Yan Yupingsheng coldly when he saw the deadly energy started to slow down and started to become restless. Lin Feng's body shook and he came back to consciousness. What was going on? What was happening? His entire body was surrounded by deadly energy as he floated in the sky. He didn't know how he got there. If Yan Yupingsheng hadn't called him, it was very likely that Lin Feng would lose control of the sword and it would attack him. His body shook, the black sword disappeared and the deadly energy immediately moved into his body. Immediately after, Lin Feng moved back to the ground. Teacher! Shouted Lin Feng when he saw that there was blood on Yan Yupingsheng's mouth and he looked deathly pale. Lin Feng was astonished. Teacher, what happened to you? Asked Lin Feng, surprised and anxious. It didn't look Yan Yupingsheng had been in a battle with anyone. Of course, almost nobody in Shuiyu could harm him anyway. Yan Yupingsheng smiled wryly. Nothing happened, said Yan Yupingsheng while slightly shaking his head. Teacher, who did this to you? Asked Lin Feng, who didn't believe Yan Yupingsheng. Yan Yupingsheng was extremely strong. Who could hurt him? He was also deathly pale, which made it look like he had been badly injured. Besides, Yan Yupingsheng's qi was so weak, it was dangerous. With Yan Yupingsheng's monstrous strength, who could have done such a thing to him? Yan Yupingsheng looked dumbfounded at Lin Feng and started to shake his head in silence. Lin Feng was surprised and suddenly came to an understanding. Teacher, was it me? Asked Lin Feng while timidly staring at Yan Yupingsheng. They had been practicing together for a few days. Apart from him, it couldn't be anyone else. Yan Yupingsheng, when he saw that Lin Feng wouldn't feel at ease until knowing the truth, slightly nodded. Lin Feng, your power of understanding is monstrous. In just 2 days, I used all of my strength and couldn't continue playing the cosmic annihilation. If I had the power to continue, it's very possible that you would have gained even more enlightenment, said Yan Yupingsheng while feeling guilty. Lin Feng's power of understanding was incredible, it was extremely rare, therefore, he wanted to play until the end so that Lin Feng could receive the most gains. When Lin Feng heard Yan Yupingsheng, he felt remorseful and uneasy, but he also felt deeply grateful. He then took a deep breath. Yan Yupingsheng was injured because of him. Lin Feng and Yan Yupingsheng were neither kith nor kin, but Yan Yupingsheng had given everything that he had to help Lin Feng. He continued to play for Lin Feng until he was injured in the hope that it would benefit Lin Feng's cultivation. Yan Yupingsheng was extremely good to him and Lin Feng would always remember that. "Thank you, teacher," said Lin Feng to Yan Yupingsheng while slightly bowing. Just like a devoted student in front of his teacher, it was also a way for Lin Feng to express his utmost gratitude. Even though the world was cruel, there were still many kind-hearted and virtuous people who lived in seclusion. Otherwise, it would have been a terrible world to live in. Lin Feng appreciated those good-natured people. The holy courtyard of Xueyu was built 2 years ago and hadn't yet managed to attract the masses of geniuses the way it had anticipated. The holy courtyard of Xueyu was built 2 years ago and hadn't yet managed to attract the masses of geniuses the way it had anticipated. The holy courtyard of Xueyu was built in the hopes to entice the entire country of Xueyu. It was built for the purpose of becoming one of the most influential powers of influence in Xueyu. Even though it had seized some of the most outstanding disciples from the larger sects, the number of them who were able to become famous in the imperial city could be counted on one hand. Besides, the holy courtyard of Xueyu was continuously humiliated by Lin Feng, whom they hadn't been able to kill when they destroyed the Yunhai sect. That tiny little disciple of the Yunhai sect had greatly impacted their reputation, especially in the imperial city. Astonishing news about Lin Feng's great accomplishments continued to spread through the city. At the holy courtyard of Xueyu, nobody had been able to create such a buzz in the imperial city. Of course, the holy courtyard of Xueyu wasn't the only group who were overshadowed. No matter who you asked, if one person had to be chosen as the most astonishing person in the entire country, the only name you would hear would be Lin Feng. He had set an entire city on fire to kill the army from Mou and crush their invasion. He crossed into the enemy country to rescue the princess. He encircled the imperial city and rescued Lu Zhanglan from receiving the death penalty for false crimes. He also killed Duan Tianlang's son, Duan Han, as Duan Tianlang watched on. Then, he killed countless powerful members of the Wanshou sect in the Nine Dragon Mountain chain and at the Celestial Academy. Each and every single one of his battles were breathtaking. There were also many things which the people didn't know about. For example, in Celestial River, he had defeated the Blade Master Leng Yu and killed Bing Yuan. He easily dealt with a number of strong opponents in Celestial River, but nobody knew about those things in the Imperial City. In 2 years, Lin Feng had created a storm wherever he went. Nobody could compare to him. In the Imperial City, everybody knew his name. Lin Feng was only 18 years old and was one of the most famous names in the entire country. The holy courtyard of Xueyu, like the Celestial Academy, created its own cultivation towers. They even created them on a larger scale to be grander and more magnificent than those of the Academy. At that moment, at the foot of one of the cultivation towers, was Lin Qian. She was wearing a bright red dress and looked very thin. She raised her head and looked to the top floor of the cultivation tower. She looked extremely sad and desolate. 2 years had passed since she joined the academy. She could vaguely remember what happened 2 years ago when Chu Zhanpeng went to the Yunhai sect. Back then, she used to be high-spirited and vigorous. She had an ice and fire spirit and Chu Zhanpeng had fallen for her. She used to think about how wonderful her future was going to be. But at that moment, her dreams didn't become a reality. It seemed like her destiny and Lin Feng's destiny were both flipped upside down. Lin Feng had suddenly started rising to prominence and accomplishing many great things. He had been, step by step, walking down the path of a legendary cultivator. When he revealed himself at the annual meeting of the Lin clan in Yangzhou City, he had already displayed his magnificence and at the same time, Lin Qian had lost her splendor. Then, a year ago, Lin Feng obtained his own army and gained Yangzhou City as a fief. Lin Feng and his troops had magnificently stormed into Yangzhou City and swept away all obstacles that stood in his way. Lin Feng was high-spirited, vigorous and dynamic. He quickly became the head of the local government in Yangzhou City and had obtained the name of Qi Xie Marquis. However, Lin Qian was only able to watch her family be oppressed by him. They didn't even have the power to contest Lin Feng's oppression. Lin Qian's only hope was lying on Chu Zhanpeng's shoulders, without him, she would never be able to compete with Lin Feng. The young man whom she used to look down upon in the past, now held her in no regard. Also, the news that Lin Feng had defeated 12 Xian Qi layer cultivators of the Wanshou sect by himself was spreading. On top of that, amongst those 12 cultivators, there had been 3 cultivators of the 3rd Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng had, once again, amazed the entire imperial city. After that, the Wanshou sect sent a group of their most powerful cultivators to take their revenge, but they were forced to retreat from the academy. When that powerful group finally returned to the Wanshou sect, only the vice-patriarch was left alive. Surprisingly, from that moment on, the Wanshou sect no longer dared to oppose Lin Feng, as if they had forgotten their hatred completely. Lin Feng had killed 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, including 3 of the 3rd Xian Qi layer. That news had left Lin Qian dumbstruck because she knew that in the past, Chu Zhanpeng was only at the 3rd Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng had been able to kill 3 cultivators at the 3rd Xian Qi layer, therefore, was Chu Zhanpeng even capable of killing Lin Feng? Lin Qian was convinced that she would never get her revenge. She hated Lin Feng. Therefore she had come to the cultivation tower to wait and started to daydream. At the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, many people were looking at Lin Qian. Some people were looking at her with admiring eyes, while some other young girls were also looking at her with envy, because she was with Chu Zhanpeng. Some people also believed that if Lin Qian was waiting there, it was because she was waiting for him. A surge of power shot into the sky. It was an extremely strong qi that was streaking across the sky. On the ground, some of the people who were walking suddenly stopped in their tracks. They raised their heads, looked at the sky and suddenly looked astonished. They only saw a silhouette shooting across the sky like a meteor. There were 2 gigantic wings that could be seen. It was a legendary rock spirit. As it cried out, its cry echoed in the air into the horizon. It's Chu Zhanpeng. Some people were shivering. That silhouette that shot into the sky suddenly stopped and floated in the sky. It slowly flapped its wings. There was a confident smile on that strangely bestial face. His cultivation had finally broken through to the next level. Chu Zhanpeng had broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer. Qian. Chu Zhanpeng looked at Lin Qian, who was waiting at the foot of the tower. He flapped his wings and suddenly crossed a distance of 1,000 meters in an instant. He grabbed Lin Qian and then once again shot into the sky. How fast! Chu Zhanpeng must have had a breakthrough. The crowd was astonished. He had broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer. He really was a genius. During the competition of geniuses, he will definitely illuminate the country with his power and bring prestige to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. As if Chu Zhanpeng had felt the people's admiration, his smile grew more proud. Last time, at the Celestial Academy, he didn't have the opportunity to kill Lin Feng, but this time, no one could stop him. Qian, I broke through to the 4th Xian Qi layer. I can easily deal with Lin Feng now. Just wait for the good news, said Chu Zhanpeng while smiling indifferently. Lin Qian slightly nodded. Considering that Chu Zhanpeng had broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer, killing Lin Feng would certainly go smoothly. It was great news that he increased his cultivation. This time, all the members of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu were gasping in amazement while looking at Chu Zhanpeng. His natural abilities and cultivation speed were astonishing. Nobody there cared about what had happened at the Celestial Academy. Chu Zhanpeng had broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer before everyone's eyes and created a monumental display, so the members of the holy courtyard worshipped him even more, whereas Lin Feng had accomplished a great number of remarkable things in secret and there were many people who had no idea of his true ability. At the same time, in a beautiful place of the imperial city, by a waterfall, there was a young man holding a sword. At that moment, the wind was blowing on that young man's body. He suddenly opened his eyes and his sword diffused an ice-cold light. At the same time, he moved and shot into the air like an arrow. As he shot into the sky, he pierced the atmosphere with his sword. The sword was extremely bright. It was so blinding that only its light could be seen in the sky as it thrust forward. After that, a subtle sound spread through the air as a small hole suddenly appeared in the waterfall. The young man smiled, his silhouette flickered and he moved back down onto the ground. His clothes were fluttering indifferently in the wind. Sirrr! A cracking sound spread in the air. The water from the waterfall suddenly burst into a shower of rain. The water then rushed towards that young man. However, at the moment when it was about to collide with him, an intangible chi blocked it. The water couldn't penetrate that chi. Your sword skills are becoming more and more terrific, sighed a feminine voice which made the young man feel extremely proud. He then turned around and looked at the beautiful woman. We will be gathering soon. This time, Ling Tian, will reveal myself to the world of cultivation for the first time. Increasing my cultivation is necessary. I will become stronger until I dominate the heavens. The young man sounded insufferably arrogant and proud. He was determined to rule the heavens. At the same time, in the Hallyu sect and the Ice and Snow Mountain village, people were riding ferocious beasts at great speed and heading for the imperial city. Besides, the patriarch of the Hallyu sect himself was walking in front of a group. There were also people walking by his sides. Apart from a few elders of the sect, there were also the most outstanding core disciples of the sect with them. It was clear to them that this time, the competition would be extraordinary and would also have extraordinary implications. No matter if it was for those in charge of the sect or its disciples, it was a great opportunity for everybody. It was an opportunity which they couldn't miss. In order to become one of the most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu, they couldn't spare any effort when it came to their cultivation. Everybody knew that so many people had started practicing even harder. Apart from the sects, in Xueyu, many people belonging to other spheres of influence, as well as independent young people, were making their way towards the imperial city. The geniuses of Xueyu had to strive for victory if they wanted to join the great competition of Xueyu. It was the era of the geniuses. Lin Feng had no idea what was happening outside. All he knew was that he had to become stronger. That was the only way to earn true freedom in the world. Only a few days had passed since those members of the Wanshou sect had left. Lin Feng had also heard that Ting Wushan and his group were attacked on the way back and that only Ting Wushan survived. Lin Feng didn't know who it was who attacked them, but he was very curious. All those people who were following Ting Wushan were killed. Besides, after that, the Wanshou sect hadn't made any other moves against Lin Feng. Why was that? All the events seemed to be related to each other, but no matter how hard Lin Feng tried to think, it was impossible for him to guess the hidden connection. Therefore it was useless for him to drive himself crazy trying to find out the truth. Lin Feng was no longer living in the student palaces of the academy. Instead, he was living in his own gigantic manor at the academy, given by the principal Yan Yupingsheng. Nobody in the academy had any objections. With Lin Feng's incredible natural abilities, nobody could rival him in the academy. In terms of strength, only a few teachers were able to compete with him. With all the merits which Lin Feng had accomplished, having his own personal manor was justified. In the gigantic manor, there was also a courtyard, a field to practice cultivation and a pavilion surrounded by beautiful rockery scenery. It was magnificent. There were also plenty of rooms to live in, a cultivation room, and some rooms for him to concoct pills and fabricate weapons. Everything was pristine and ready to use. At that moment, Lin Feng was in the alchemy room. Apart from Lin Feng, there was also Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua. The three of them stood around a cauldron. That cauldron was gigantic and majestic, but it looked very simple. It seemed like it hadn't been used for centuries and it was releasing a very ancient qi. That cauldron was the one that Lin Feng had obtained in Celestial River. It was the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron. Of course, Lin Feng knew that that cauldron was still missing parts, however he could still use it to concoct pills. A fire was burning under the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron and the heat had enveloped the entire cauldron. Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua were not participating at all, they were only observing Lin Feng's actions. Back in Yangzhou City, they had taught Lin Feng about alchemy and Lin Feng was an extremely quick learner. At that moment, except for a few minor adjustments, Lin Feng no longer needed their help with concocting pills. Lin Feng had a method for concocting pills by relying on his extremely strong soul. He had reached a particularly high level in alchemy. The heavenly dragon cauldron started diffusing a pleasant scent. The medicinal fragrance was rich and thick in the air. It seemed like the pills were nearing completion. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi glanced at each other. They were surprised. Lin Feng was able to concoct pills by himself in such a short period of time. At that moment, Lin Feng was concocting Xian-level pills of lower quality. The pills he was concocting were extremely complicated and had the special attribute of allowing cultivators to break through a bottleneck with greater ease. Ren Qingquang and the two other high-ranking soldiers had also used that pill to break through to the Xian Qi layer. Many cultivators who were at the peak of the 9th Ling Qi layer would crave for this pill even in their wildest dreams. Its price was so high that it even exceeded that of some higher-level pills. Lin Feng was concocting those pills for Duan Feng and Lan Jiao. They were both close to breaking through to the Xian Qi layer. If they consumed that pill, Lin Feng was hoping that they would break through. Then, Lin Feng would then have two more cultivators of the Xian Qi layer on his side, and at the very least they would be able to protect themselves. His terrifying soul enveloped the heavenly dragon cauldron. Small parts of his soul were penetrating into the interior of the cauldron. Lin Feng was able to clearly sense every single inch of the cauldron, which enabled him to perfectly control the degree of heating. 9 flames! Shouted Lin Feng suddenly. The fire beneath the cauldron dispersed. 9 small fire lotuses appeared and shot towards very specific parts of the cauldron. Those 9 lotus flowers engulfed the cauldron. There was a sudden increase in pressure inside the cauldron, and at the same time, the mixture in the cauldron also started to move in 9 different directions before consolidating into a pill. These pills were Xian-level pills. Their energy had reached a climax. Besides, the number 9 was symbolic because it was the imperial number, the number of the king. Therefore, in the continent, many treasures and skills put significance in the number 9, for example the heavenly dragon cauldron. The latter could thus be called the cauldron of the Dragon King. While concocting pills, one of the most important factors was to control the degree and duration of the heat of each specific ingredient to allow them to correctly merge. How amazing! Sighed Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi with amazement. Lin Feng could control the fire with his soul. Even if they wanted to do the same, it wasn't that easy. Controlling the fire with one's soul required an extremely powerful soul and required a great deal of effort. However, Lin Feng looked calm. He did not look like he was doing something difficult, and his expression was normal. Lin Feng was controlling the 9 flames and had formed each flame into a delicate lotus flower. This was extremely difficult to do this with even a single flame. I have no idea how he's doing that. The 2 old men were shaking their heads. Lin Feng was a monster. Not only did he have amazing and breathtaking natural abilities, but he could also concoct pills using such a magnificent method. And he was only 18 years old. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi didn't dare imagine how strong Lin Feng would be when he reached their age. Of course, they were convinced that Lin Feng would be leaving Xueyu sooner or later. Lin Feng couldn't be limited to Xueyu. Xueyu was only the start of his journey and not the final destination. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi started to calm down. They knew that concocting high-level pills wouldn't be a problem for Lin Feng in the future. Concocting Xian-level pills of lower quality already wasn't a problem for him. Besides, the success rates were very high. Lin Feng had an extremely strong soul and a powerful flame, which were essential factors for an alchemist. Lin Feng also had great teachers who were considered as top-level alchemists in Xueyu. Lin Feng also possessed the heavenly dragon cauldron. This helped him to easily concoct the Xian-level pills. A strong and pleasant fragrance invaded the atmosphere, and 3 pills floated from the heavenly dragon cauldron. On the surface there was a shiny coat, and one could see at first glance that the quality of those pills was extremely high. Lin Feng raised his head as he released his pure qi, and in a flash, those 3 pills shot towards him and landed on the palm of his hand. When Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi saw those pills, they started to walk towards Lin Feng and study the blue and green pills. They then started to shake their heads in disbelief. That little monster can really concoct pills. Mr. Qi said. Concocting pills were extremely hard. They usually didn't do more than 1 pill at a time, whereas Lin Feng had immediately concocted 3 pills at once. There was a great risk, as if there was even a small problem with 1 pill, then all the ingredients were lost. These old men were usually very careful when concocting pills. They would concoct 1 pill with extreme care as to not make a mistake, but Lin Feng was able to concoct 3 at once. "Old fellow, Lin Feng is already much better than us," said Mr. Hua in a very low voice. Mr. Qi nodded. Lin Feng's pills were clearly better quality than theirs. "It's only because I used the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron," said Lin Feng, who felt embarrassed. "Even if you used the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron, you concocted those pills by relying on your own ability, there is no doubt about that. Mr. Hua and I can see that clearly," replied Mr. Qi. Lin Feng didn't try to explain anything and said, "Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, let's leave." When Lin Feng finished talking, he put the cauldron in his Na stone. Immediately after, the 3 of them left the alchemy room. The winged tiger suddenly rushed up to Lin Feng and roared in a pleading manner. Its gigantic eyes were fixed on Lin Feng. It looked like it was begging for something. "You want to eat these pills?" asked Lin Feng while looking at the winged tiger strangely. "Roar!" replied the winged tiger while nodding its head, which left Lin Feng speechless. "Raise your head," said Lin Feng. The winged tiger raised its head and looked at Lin Feng. The beast looked perplexed. Lin Feng smiled and took out a pill. He then stretched his arm and threw the pill above the winged tiger's head. The winged tiger was surprised. It immediately opened its mouth and caught the pill. The 2 old men by his side were speechless. What a waste of a pill! Lin Feng had just wasted such a great treasure. Lin Feng didn't care about that Xian level pill. If the winged tiger wanted to have one, why not give one to him? Lin Feng didn't care about that Xian level pill. If the winged tiger wanted to have one, why not give one to him? That Xian Qi layer pill could only make a cultivator break through to the first Xian Qi layer, nothing more, and the winged tiger could easily kill multiple cultivators of the first Xian Qi layer. It could even kill cultivators of the second Xian Qi layer. Who was more valuable to Lin Feng? A cultivator of the first Xian Qi layer or his winged tiger companion? For Lin Feng, the answer was obvious. Since Lin Feng had adopted the winged tiger, it was considered as one of his friends. After the winged tiger swallowed the Xian level pill, its eyes started twinkling in a resplendent way. It roared with pleasure. Immediately after, it started walking away with long strides, looking extremely satisfied. It also looked amused somehow. When Lin Feng saw how happy the winged tiger looked, he slightly shook his head and immediately left. He had to find Lan Xiao and Duan Feng. When Duan Feng saw that pill, he was stupefied. He looked at Lin Feng and shouted, "Lin Feng, big brother." He had never even seen such a pill. It was too precious. "Duan Feng, when you have the feeling that you can break through to the Xian Qi layer, just take that pill. It will help you through the bottleneck. Of course, if you don't feel like using it and prefer relying on your own ability, just keep that pill for the future, that is all right as well." Lin Feng slightly smiled while he spoke. If it had been someone else, Lin Feng wouldn't have added those last sentences, but Duan Feng had the blood spirit of the imperial clan. He also had extremely high natural abilities. He had a pure heart and devoted his life to cultivation, and it showed. In just 2 years, he had broken from the Qi layer through to the peak of the Ling Qi layer. He was only 1 step away from reaching the Xian Qi layer. Duan Feng is not weaker than the so-called high officials. It's just that nobody realizes his talent, that's all, thought Lin Feng. Duan Feng did not have any arrogance. He was discreet and a very introverted character. Besides, he had never thought of himself as someone with a high level of talent. He only focused on improving his cultivation and ignored everything else. For those reasons, Duan Feng wasn't very well known in the Celestial Academy. Of course, because of his personality, he could practice cultivation in peace without any distractions. He could focus his entire attention on his cultivation. Perhaps Duan Feng, relying solely on his natural abilities and tenacity, would greatly surprise everybody one day. "I will use it. I have the feeling that I can break through to the Xian Qi layer anytime now, said Duan Feng after looking pensive for a short moment, which astonished Lin Feng. Duan Feng, are you sure? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. When it came to profound pills, after having using a pill, the same pill would have a much lower effect in the future, except for a few healing pills and other pills with special attributes. Not only did he not need to use it, but it might also affect Duan Feng's confidence. Lin Feng, brother, there will be no problem, replied Duan Feng while nodding. Lin Feng didn't say anything at first, and then added, all right, well, when you start attempting to break through to the Xian Qi layer, I will protect you. All right, sorry for bothering you, brother, replied Duan Feng, who immediately sat down cross-legged, which rendered Lin Feng speechless. His movements seemed so natural and he clearly didn't think twice. It seemed like he trusted Lin Feng with his life. Duan Feng's cultivation was increasing very quickly. He laid some purity stones next to him and then swallowed the pill. He quickly started absorbing the qi of heaven and earth as he started his cultivation. Lin Feng on his side, calmly watched him practicing cultivation. Around Duan Feng's body was a sharp and dazzling golden light. He truly looked like he was a king among men. What kind of skill is he cultivating? Lin Feng realized that he hadn't paid enough attention to Duan Feng in the past. In order to break through to the first Xian Qi layer, a cultivator needed to cultivate a cultivation skill like his Cosmos Burning Sun, but Duan Feng had never mentioned anything, but he seemed to be very confident in breaking through to the Xian Qi layer. It looks like a very complex technique, thought Lin Feng. His cultivation method contained a brutal and yet elegant qi. That skill was extraordinary. The fact that Duan Feng's cultivation had increased so quickly definitely had something to do with the skills he practiced. Around Duan Feng's body, a storm was becoming visible. It was terrifying. Lin Feng was shocked and also started to sense the qi in the atmosphere. It's a D-level skill. Duan Feng surprisingly has such terrifying skills. Lin Feng was astonished and perplexed. The speed at which a person absorbed qi was a good indicator of how strong that person was. And Duan Feng was absorbing the qi around him at an incredible speed. Duan Feng's skill was incredible. It was at least a D-level skill of lower quality. Lin Feng's Cosmos Burning Sun skill was also a D-level skill of lower quality. How could Lin Feng not be astonished? But Lin Feng is sure that Duan Feng wasn't planning to hide anything from him, otherwise he wouldn't have used that skill in front of him at that moment. Besides, Duan Feng wasn't the scheming and calculating type of person. But where did his skill come from? All I can do is wait until he's done and then I will ask him, thought Lin Feng. He then continued watching Duan Feng absorb incredible quantities of qi from his surroundings. Very quickly, Duan Feng was surrounded by a terrifying storm of qi which was forming into a crystal around him. Duan Feng was in the middle of that crystal and Lin Feng couldn't even see Duan Feng's facial traits clearly anymore. He condensed the qi into a solid state and he's going to absorb and purify it into pure qi using a liquefaction process. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. He had really underestimated both Duan Feng's skill and talent. In such a short time, he would be able to break through to the Xian Qi layer. A terrifying qi started flowing through the air at the same pace as Duan Feng's heartbeat and it then dispersed. After a short moment of calm, multiple silhouettes started to appear: Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, Lan Jiao, Jing Yun and Yishui. They were all fixedly staring at Duan Feng inside his cocoon. Jing Yun's mouth was wide open. Astonishment had invaded her beautiful eyes. Duan Feng was going to break through to the Xian Qi layer already? He was going to break through to the Xian Qi layer. That was incredible. Since when was it so easy to break through to the Xian Qi layer? It seems like that pill was wasted, thought Lin Feng. Even without a pill, Duan Feng would be able to break through to the Xian Qi layer. It would have only been a matter of time. Of course, saying that it was a waste was also exaggerated. At least at that moment Lin Feng knew how extraordinary Duan Feng was. Immediately after, the qi formed a liquid and started to penetrate into Duan Feng's body, and pure qi started to appear around him, which pierced through his cocoon of qi. It was extremely sharp. He was going to break through, it was about to happen. Boom! A terrifying qi emerged from Duan Feng's body. Behind Duan Feng was a black door. That black door was part of his spirit, the sealed door's spirit. A creaking sound emerged through the atmosphere, sealed doors continued appearing, and after the fifth one appeared, it stopped. Duan Feng surprisingly had 5 sealed doors. How terrifying. At the same time, a sharp pure qi burst towards the skies. Immediately after, Duan Feng opened his eyes. The qi around his body had been completely transformed into pure qi. Pure qi was now glowing around his entire body. After the sharp light disappeared, Duan Feng saw that there was a group of people who were all looking at him. He was stupefied. He then immediately looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng, big brother, I have successfully broke through to the Xian Qi layer. Duan Feng's voice sounded innocent and immature. He wanted to share his joy with Lin Feng. Lin Feng slightly nodded, his silhouette flickered and landed in front of Duan Feng. Alright, Duan Feng, you have terrifying natural abilities. What are you talking about? When Duan Feng heard Lin Feng's compliment, he lowered his head looking shy. Duan Feng, what is the skill that you cultivate? Where does it come from? Asked Lin Feng without wasting time. It's not that Lin Feng was trying to interrogate him, but he was very curious of the origins of the skill. Since Duan Feng left the village, Lin Feng was and the others were almost always with him. They were always in a group. Where could he have obtained such a monstrous skill without them knowing? If Duan Feng wanted to keep it a secret, he wouldn't have used it in front of everyone, therefore Lin Feng didn't hesitate and straightforwardly asked him. When Duan Feng heard Lin Feng, he was shocked and immediately replied, If I tell you that it appeared in my memories, would you believe me? When Duan Feng heard Lin Feng, he was shocked and immediately replied, If I tell you that it appeared in my memories, would you believe me? Duan Feng was looking at Lin Feng hoping that he would believe him. That skill was seemingly in his memories, he had always had it inside him. Lin Feng stared at Duan Feng and said, while nodding, I do believe you. Lin Feng really did believe Duan Feng. Even though it was a very strange explanation, there were many strange things in the world already. Something like that happening in Duan Feng's memories didn't seem that strange to Lin Feng. Besides, Duan Feng had the blood of the imperial clan flowing in his veins, he had inherited their blood spirit, and it was possible some of their memories. Maybe it was something normal for blood spirits. Lin Feng, brother, thank you, said Duan Feng when he saw that Lin Feng wholeheartedly believed him. His smile was warm and friendly. Why are you thanking me? Even if you came across some amazing skills but didn't tell me about it, I wouldn't be mad at you, I was just surprised, that's all, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. Alright, nodded Duan Feng. Immediately after, he looked at Jing Yun and said, Jing Yun, sister, now that I have broken through to the Xian Qi layer, I can protect you. Silly boy, said Jing Yun. Duan Feng and Jing Yun's relationship was very close, they treated each other like blood-related siblings. Duan Feng scratched his head, he looked incredibly simple and honest. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Lan Jiao. Lan Jiao, Duan Feng just broke through to the Xian Qi layer, what about you? When will you start to break through? Why do you care? Said Lan Jiao, which made Lin Feng lose face, he was speechless. I don't care, it's just having weaklings on my side is burdensome. Of course, if you are willing to leave, I would be more than happy to send you on your way. Lin Feng had said that on purpose and it left Lan Jiao astonished. She looked at him with a cruel glare and said, You want me to leave so that I stop being a burden? Even if you want me to leave, I refuse, I will always be a burden and stay with you. Whether you want to leave or not is your decision, but you are too weak. Next time you need help, don't expect anyone to come help you. I have a pill here which can help you break through to the Xian Qi layer when the right time comes. Take it and use it when you think it's the right time, said Lin Feng. Lan Jiao wanted to refuse, but Lin Feng had already thrown a pill at her, which stupefied her. Lin Feng had just thrown a Xian-level pill towards her the same way he would have disposed of trash. She obviously knew how precious the pill was. She quickly stretched out her hand and caught the pill. She wanted to say something, but Lin Feng had already turned around and left, not giving her the chance to say anything, which stupefied Lan Jiao. That guy. While looking at Lin Feng's back, her eyes were filled with anger, but she was also slightly touched. He had offered her a Xian-level pill while acting like a wealthy and spoilt noble. It was as if he didn't care about such treasures. How detestable. After Lin Feng made his exit, he went to a room which was very orderly and tidy. Meng Qing was sitting cross-legged on the bed inside the room. Her eyes were closed. She seemed like she was cultivating. There was a faintly discernible coldness around her body. When she heard Lin Feng enter, she opened her eyes and gave him a smile. Her smile could make anyone melt. When Lin Feng saw Meng Qing's smile, he suddenly felt extremely relaxed. He didn't feel any pressure at all. Then he looked at Meng Qing with a warm and tender look. He walked towards her and immediately jumped onto the bed. He felt tired at that moment, so he just started lying next to Meng Qing, as if it was his own bed. He was acting wildly. Meng Qing's eyes lit up. She smiled and shook her head. That guy was starting to take more and more liberties. He used to shake with fear from head to toe when entering her room, but at that moment, without warning, he jumped onto her bed and lied down in a relaxed manner. Meng Qing didn't say anything either and allowed him to act wildly. In fact, considering her feelings for Lin Feng, she was able to tolerate his actions. She wanted to stay with him forever. Lin Feng also knew that, which was why he wildly jumped onto her bed. After that, he suddenly grabbed her and pulled her down next to him. Both of them were lying very close to each other. Their lips were only a few inches apart. Meng Qing suddenly looked shy and lowered her head. She didn't dare look Lin Feng in the eyes. When Lin Feng saw that Meng Qing was acting shy, a magnificent smile appeared on his face and he softly wrapped his arms around Meng Qing. He exerted a little bit of force as he pulled her into his chest for an embrace. Meng Qing, if we could lie down and embrace each other forever, I would definitely agree, said Lin Feng in a tender way, which made Meng Qing's heart feel warm. Indeed, if they could stay like that forever, how perfect would that be? Both of them wished that it could last forever, so none of them dared break that wonderful moment. They just silently embraced each other. Lin Feng closed his eyes and slowly fell asleep. Lin Feng fell into a deep sleep. He was sleeping so peacefully and happily. He was extremely relaxed. Even though he slept regularly, he usually wasn't as relaxed and couldn't sleep as deeply as he did now. He hadn't been able to fall so deeply asleep in a long time. He was always thinking about his problems and the dangers around him, so he never managed to sleep well, but with Meng Qing in his arms, his heart finally felt peaceful. 2 days later, while Lin Feng was cultivating, when he received an invitation letter. It was a very simple letter with huge letters. In 7 days, on the night of the full moon, the national competition will begin at the Xiangjiang Lake. Your Excellency Lin Feng is invited. That was the content of the letter. There was no name or no indication of where it came from, but Lin Feng perfectly understood what it meant. Besides, he had already heard a great deal about the national competition of Xueyu. A short time before, Chu Zhanpeng had come to fight against him and they had agreed to fight at the competition of Xueyu. All the geniuses of Xueyu would enter the competition for a chance to show their amazing prowess. At the same time, it was also the best way to select the top young cultivators for the great competition of Xueyu. The people from the empire would come to observe and monitor to select who would participate at the great competition, the stage in which the most outstanding geniuses from the 13 countries would fight. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. Sharp lights were twinkling in his eyes. He had wanted to see that competition with his own eyes for a while. He wanted to see how outstanding the geniuses of Xueyu really were. So, in 7 days I'll need to be at Xiangjiang Lake. The crescent moon was floating in the black sky and there was no stars in sight. The night felt lonely and cold. The crescent moon was floating in the black sky and there was no stars in sight. The night felt lonely and cold. In 7 days there will be a full moon. Lin Feng whispered to himself. Lin Feng had heard about the national competition of Shuiyu before, but he didn't know any concrete details about it. It seemed like it was organized by the imperial family and the Duan clan. It seemed like they were the ones inviting people. More precisely, it was the king of Shuiyu, who was also the head of the Duan clan. But that detail was useless. Lin Feng only knew that there were going to be battles and he was going to have to fight too. Chu Zhanpeng was the 6th-ranked high official of Shuiyu. In the past, he used to be the best disciple of the Haoyu sect. The first time Lin Feng saw him, Chu Zhanpeng was extremely arrogant. He had come to the Yunhai sect and wanted them to deliver Lin Feng to him. Back then, Elder Mo Xia even accepted his demands. If Protector Kong hadn't appeared in the form of a shadow, Lin Feng would already be dead. It was clear to Lin Feng that Chu Zhanpeng was still as arrogant as before and considered Lin Feng to be an insect, a nobody. Chu Zhanpeng frequently humiliated Lin Feng after they met at the Yunhai sect. A short time before, he had even gone to the Celestial Academy and displayed his strength. He came looking for Lin Feng again. Lin Feng clearly remembered all the past grudges. Lin Feng needed to forget about that hatred and animosity. What he needed to do was prove to Chu Zhanpeng that he was not able to bully him the way he did. When Lin Feng thought about Chu Zhanpeng, he also remembered the time when he was only at the Qi layer. He was a weak young boy. After having broken through to the Ling Qi layer, he felt so high-spirited and vigorous. He didn't want to see the Yunhai sect get annihilated. The Yunhai sect had sacrificed themselves to protect Lin Feng and save his life. Protector Kong and Nan Gongling were killed as Protector Bei helped him escape. Lin Feng would never forget the bloodbath of the Yunhai sect. It was tragic. Lin Feng could never forget that the ring he had on his finger was the ring worn only by the patriarch of the Yunhai sect. Everybody trusted Lin Feng and they put all of their hopes of the future in him. Just wait until I'm strong enough, the Yunhai sect will reappear in Shuiyu, thought Lin Feng while looking at the bright moon above. Rivers of blood had been spilt. It couldn't be in vain. Lin Feng would rebuild the Yunhai sect and he would avenge the bloodbath of those who came before him. Lin Feng would honor the dead of the Yunhai sect. The sound of somebody's steps interrupted Lin Feng in his thoughts. Those steps were becoming louder and louder as Lin Feng saw a young man appear who was walking slowly. Lin Feng, big brother, shouted that young man with a faint smile. He looked at Lin Feng with his eyes full of respect. Duan Feng, why are you not resting? Said Lin Feng while smiling. Lin Feng envied Duan Feng sometimes. His heart was so pure, there wasn't an iota of hatred to corrupt his heart. He was still so pure and innocent. He didn't have any obligations and worries. All he needed to do was focus on his cultivation. On the other hand, Lin Feng had a great deal of things to worry about. For example, he was carrying the fate of the entire Yunhai sect on his shoulders. He also needed to find his father who seemed to have gone missing. I can't sleep, replied Duan Feng while walking towards him. There was a letter in his hand. He handed it over to Lin Feng. What's this? Asked Lin Feng while glancing at Duan Feng. He then grabbed the letter and read it. There was just a simple text on it. In 7 days, on the night of the full moon, the national competition will happen at Xiangjiang Lake. Your Excellency Duan Feng is invited. Lin Feng had received the same letter. It had been sent by the same person. Duan Feng, you also received an invitation. Congratulations, said Lin Feng while slightly smiling. Only the most talented young cultivators of Shuiyu received it and Duan Feng was proof of that. But Lin Feng, big brother, only you and a few others know that I have broken through to the Xian Qi layer. I haven't told any outsider. How did they know? Duan Feng sounded anxious and continued, I don't think that they would bother inviting a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer. Young and powerful cultivators who have reached the Xian Qi layer is what they are looking for. You haven't told anyone? Lin Feng was surprised. Indeed, Shuiyu was a vast country. The imperial city itself had a myriad of extremely young yet strong cultivators. Inviting members of the Ling Qi layer would be meaningless for them. What Duan Feng said was true, they were only interested in cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, as a minimum requirement. But Duan Feng was saying that he had told nobody else about it. How could they know that he had broken through to the Xian Qi layer? The water of Shuiyu is deeper than what I had imagined. Lin Feng thought with a smile while shaking his head. If he couldn't find the answer, it wasn't necessary to drive himself nuts over it. He then said to Duan Feng, since you received that letter, just relax, don't drive yourself crazy. It might also be due to your incredible natural abilities. In 7 days, we will go to Xiangjiang Lake together. All right. Nodded Duan Feng, but then he slightly frowned and said, while looking at Lin Feng, there is something else I would like to tell you. What is it? Asked Lin Feng. He was a bit surprised when he saw that Duan Feng frowning. Duan Feng had been always pure and innocent, and was always smiling. Lin Feng was wondering what was going on. It seemed like he had something heavy in his heart. Lin Feng, you remember when you asked me that question last time, where I had gotten that incredible skill? Asked Duan Feng, which surprised Lin Feng. Duan Feng was talking about this again. Was he hiding something? Didn't you say that you found it in your memories? Asked Lin Feng. Indeed, I found that skill in my memories. Said Duan Feng while slightly nodding, but then continued, but while my cultivation increases, new memories appear in my brain as well. Each time I progress, new memories appear, but they don't belong to me. I never had memories of them before, but there are some amazingly powerful skills and techniques that appear. It's extremely strange. Ha! When Lin Feng heard Duan Feng, he was stupefied. New memories were appearing in his brain as his cultivation increased. It was indeed very strange. Could it be that somebody sealed your memories and as your cultivation increases, the seals open themselves? Guessed Lin Feng, but he wasn't sure. If someone could seal memories inside somebody's brain and make the seal open by itself as the person's cultivation increased, how terrifying would that person be? There was probably nobody in Shuiyu who could achieve such a thing. Duan Feng, your father and mother. Suddenly said Lin Feng. But Duan Feng immediately shook his head and said, Lin Feng, brother, I have never met my parents. I only know that I have the blood spirit of the imperial clan. I only know that they have been transported to a distant place to be punished. I've always been in that small village where I lived an aristocratic life, but I don't even know who my father is. Lin Feng frowned. Duan Feng had never seen his own parents. Those memories were extremely strange. But if nobody had sealed those memories in his brain, what other explanation could there be? Could it be a sort of sixth sense? If it was, his natural abilities were even more terrifying. Lin Feng, there is something else. Not only does my cultivation increase extremely quickly, but I also learn skills and techniques very quickly, as if I already know them. I only read them once and then I am already able to use them. I have tried to practice skills which were not part of my memories and it was extremely difficult, even if they were only low-level ones. Continued Duan Feng. Lin Feng was growing more and more surprised and had also started to frown. How strange. Why? Lin Feng had no idea. He looked pensive for a while, but then he smiled and said, Duan Feng, being able to practice cultivation quickly is a great thing. Maybe you really have a sixth sense or a strange ability that you know nothing about. Since you don't understand it, don't drive yourself crazy because of it. I will ask Senior Yenyu for you next time. Duan Feng nodded. He wanted to understand it but couldn't, and it was driving him insane. He couldn't practice calmly as it was always on his mind. No matter what, being able to cultivate quickly and easily was always a great thing. Lin Feng, brother, I will go back now. You should rest too. Said Duan Feng. Lin Feng slightly nodded and Duan Feng left. But Lin Feng stayed at the same place, calmly looking at the crescent moon. He stayed there all night. During the following day, the news that the imperial city had been sending invitation letters spread quickly, and then the news was spread through the entire country. Those who received an invitation became the focus of everybody's attention. That letter was the proof that a cultivator was both extremely strong and talented. Those who had received it were the most outstanding amongst the young cultivators. That letter was the proof that a cultivator was both extremely strong and talented. Those who had received it were the most outstanding amongst the young cultivators. Besides, those who hadn't received a letter were gathering on the bank of the lake. They wanted to personally observe the most outstanding disciples of Xueyu. Being able to see the extremely strong cultivators displaying their strength was a rare sight, so it was a good opportunity for the masses. There weren't only members of the imperial city who had gathered, there were people from all parts of Xueyu. Everybody was interested in the national competition. Everybody wanted to see how strong the geniuses of Xueyu really were and how high their natural abilities were. They would also be able to see the difference between them. Finally, on the 5th day, the imperial government of Xueyu gave the order to start a blockade. People could leave the imperial city but were no longer allowed entry. There were too many people who had gathered in the imperial city. People were pushing and squeezing past each other on the incredibly large roads which would normally allow 1,000 people to walk shoulder to shoulder with space between. The order to start a blockade made the people who were waiting to enter grow furious. They regretted traveling across such a distance only to be too late. At that moment, they couldn't enter the imperial city. It wouldn't be possible to see the national competition. The atmosphere in the imperial city was extremely agitated, bustling and lively. Everybody was extremely impatient, until finally, the 7th day arrived. The Xiangjiang Lake was situated in the northern district of the imperial city. The lake was only a few hundred yards wide, but it was a few dozen miles in length. From one side of the lake, it was impossible to see the other side. The Xiangjiang Lake was extremely long. Early in the morning, both sides of the lake were covered with people from above. Those crowds of people moving looked like dragons. They covered an area of a few dozen miles. The sight was incredible. If those people all stomped onto the ground at the same time, it would flip the entire lake upside down. The atmosphere was extremely noisy around the lake. No matter if they knew each other or not, the people were all talking to each other. They were all discussing the strong cultivators who might have received invitation letters. They were all trying to guess how many cultivators there would be and where they were from. Of course, when many people gathered together, there was also tension and conflicts. Some of the people wanted to be on the very bank of the lake, but others wouldn't let them go ahead of them. Clouds of dust could be seen in many places due to the fact that many people were fighting each other to get a better view. It didn't look too important though. From above, those battles just looked like a small ripple in the sea of people, and after a period of time, all the battles had come to a conclusion. Time was passing very slowly for the audience and everybody was excited for the arrival of the night. Time seemed to be passing much slower. It seemed like they had waited for 100 days for it to become night. The more impatient they were, the slower the time passed. As the time passed and the scarlet-red sun started shining down on the lake. While the sun was setting in one part of the sky, the full moon was appearing in another. People's heartbeats were beating faster and faster. Soon, the national competition would begin. They had been waiting for that for such a long time. In the distance, a group of people appeared. They were standing on a gigantic beast and they were flying at full speed. The one who seemed to be their leader looked majestic. He had a very commanding presence. Those people immediately moved onto the bank of the lake. That place was reserved for them. There were already some soldiers blocking people from entering that area. How you sect? The crowd was stupefied. The people who had just landed were holding a flag which was fluttering in the wind. On that flag, there were words written in a flamboyant style calligraphy. Haoyue sect was written in huge characters. The imperial city had invited some outstanding young cultivators, but they had also invited the biggest sects and clans of the country. They would obviously invite the Haoyu sect. The majestic-looking leader was the patriarch of the Haoyu sect, Chu Qing. I heard that 2 disciples of the Haoyu sect have been invited. One of them is Chu Zhanpeng. There's no need for me to remind you how strong he is, and the other is a core disciple of the Haoyu sect, Jiang Shan. He seemingly broke through to the Xian Qi layer and was invited as well. Discussions broke out when they saw the Haoyu sect. What about the Blade Master, Ling Yu? I've heard that the Haoyu sect has a genius called Ling Yu. His nickname is the Blade Master. Even though he is only the second-ranked core disciple, his natural abilities are even higher than those of Jiang Shan. He is definitely going to be a high official in the future. Where is he? Is he coming or not? I've also heard about him. It is said that he is abnormally fast, and if he takes out his blade, someone will die. Nobody can dodge his attacks, but it's been a while since I have heard anything about him. Besides, some people even say that he's gone missing. Two people were talking about the Blade Master. They couldn't know that they would never see the Blade Master because he was already killed by Lin Feng. Very few people knew about that encounter. The news hadn't even reached the public in Imperial City, therefore, the fact that the people in the crowd didn't know about it was very normal. Is that Snow? The members of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village are here. At that moment, some people noticed that snow was forming on the horizon, as if the moon itself was going to be frozen. A layer of ice appeared on the ground beneath them and a thick snow fell from the sky. At the same time, there were people who could be seen traveling across the ice and snow. They were obviously the members of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. However, what astonished many people within the crowd was that the group of people was very small. There were only a few people in their group. Once again, very few people in the country knew about the battle in Celestial River, where a large force of cultivators from the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were killed. They had charged there to kill Lin Feng and never returned. The members of the Luo Xia sect have arrived. Sighed some other people surprised. The setting sun was shining upon another group of people on the horizon. The group of people looked extremely desolate and unapproachable as they moved with the setting sun shining down on them. They also had a location reserved for them. The Luo Xia sect comes from such a remote location in the country. They also never mix with other people. I wouldn't have thought that they would come to the competition. The patriarch of their sect, Gu Chunqiu, has personally come as well, said some of the seniors in the crowd when they saw Gu Chunqiu, the patriarch of the Luo Xia sect. The crowd was astonished because Gu Chunqiu was the strangest and most reclusive of all the patriarchs. He looked glum, as if he was surrounded by hardships and problems. The Luo Xia sect and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were the same. They had gone to Celestial River to acquire the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron. Wu Gang offended Lin Feng because he wanted to use him as a scapegoat for his own cowardice, and because of that, the cultivators and elders of the Luo Xia sect were all slaughtered. How could Gu Chunqiu not look glum? He remembered Lin Feng, but in Celestial River, there had been a monstrously evil cultivator who killed everyone who went for the Heavenly Dragon Cauldron and left no survivors, so Gu Chunqiu had thought that Lin Feng was killed at that time. However, when Lin Feng's name started to spread in the Imperial City again, Gu Chunqiu heard the rumors and knew that he was still alive. This time, Gu Chunqiu had come to the Imperial City for one reason: to kill Lin Feng. The sun was gradually setting on the horizon. The members of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu, the Yu Clan and of the Wanshou sect also started arriving. They all had reserved spots, so they did not need to arrive early. All the greatest spheres of influence in the country had their own reserved location, and in the middle of everyone, there was a huge empty location. It was the lake. On the side of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu, two silhouettes appeared in the sky above them. Chu Zhanpeng immediately landed in front of the crowd of the Haoyu sect. "Father!" shouted Chu Zhanpeng while looking at Chu Qing. "Zhanpeng, this time, you know what you have to do, right?" said Chu Qing while looking at Chu Zhanpeng. "Don't worry, father, even if Lin Feng hadn't killed Ling Yu, I would have killed him anyway," said Chu Zhanpeng with sharp lights twinkling in his eyes. Lin Feng needed to be dealt with before it was too late. At the same time, the members of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were having the same conversation as well. They had lost so many people in Celestial River. Now they had an occasion to kill Lin Feng. They couldn't let the opportunity slip by. They all wanted to kill Lin Feng. The Haoyu sect and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were all the same. Even the Luo Xia sect, the Wanshou sect and the Yu clan wanted to use this opportunity to kill him. Actually, they already had enmity with Lin Feng from the moment they destroyed the Yunhai sect. Even without everything that had happened after that, they needed to destroy the roots and kill Lin Feng. While the sun was setting, the full moon was rising. While the sun was setting, the full moon was rising. The full moon looked cold and desolate, it was illuminating the water of the lake and the people below with a pale moonlight. In the distance, a sound spread through the air which surprised the crowd. What had they just heard? The crowd gazed into the distance and saw 9 dragons moving through the air. The sound of dragons roaring could be heard as the dragons weaved around each other. They were far in the distance, but the sound was loud and clear for everyone. The most shocking was that in the middle of those 9 dragons, there was a throne. It was a golden throne. On the curtains surrounding that throne, there were multiple depictions of dragons. At the same time, surrounding that throne, there was an army of strong cultivators flying through the sky in perfect formation. Those people had sharp expressions in their eyes and the chi they were releasing was monstrously brutal. The king! The crowd was shivering when they saw the spectacle. How majestic! He was being carried by 9 dragons and the army strong cultivators were flying in formation to clear the path. How astonishing! Everybody had already guessed who that person was, the king of Shuayu. Roar! The 9 dragons roared with a majestic magnificence and the sound echoed in everyone's ears. When they saw the king, the entire population started to bow. The king was arriving and his arrival was accompanied by 9 dragons. The king has even come to the national competition. Thought the people in the crowd, they were all surprised. It seemed like this competition was going to be extremely important. The king even came in person. The national competition was similar to the great competition of Shuayu. It was something that happened every 10 years, but for many people, they wouldn't get to see the king in their entire lifetime. The 9 dragons flew down from the sky and immediately dove into the water. After a moment, the tops of the dragons flew out from the surface of the lake. They looked very skillful and agile. Those 9 dragons could fly through the sky and swim in the water, but the strangest thing was that the water of the lake didn't even move from the dragons' movements. At that moment, the crowd was astonished by the spectacle of the 9 dragons. Their hearts were pounding out of their chests. Those 9 dragons were all dozens of meters in size. They could move through the water without even a ripple appearing. How majestic! The entire atmosphere became calm. At that moment, nobody dared say a word. They were all looking at the throne which was now slightly above the surface of the water. Go! A low voice sounded out but was distinctly loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. When that person finished talking, the 9 dragons shot into the air. What are they doing? Wondered some people while shaking from the presence of the dragons. Those 9 dragons arrived in the sky and started flying in circles, which created a cyclone around them as it absorbed all of the clouds in the sky. A monstrously powerful chi rolled through the air as the 9 dragons started to revolve. The 9 dragons were roaring unceasingly and the throne looked lonely above the lake. It calmly hung in suspension above the water of the lake, but it wasn't falling at all, it was just oscillating a little as it floated in the air. It was very intriguing. Finally, the 9 dragons stopped moving and dove back into the lake and appeared on the surface. At that moment, a huge circle appeared in the sky and created a dark barrier beneath. That circular barrier was formed by dark chi. It seemed like the 9 dragons had been revolving in the air to create this barrier. The great competition of Shuayu occurs every 10 years, people from all across the 13 countries participate. There are many outstanding young cultivators. All those who have joined the great competition of Shuayu, if they were not killed during the competition, they came back as heroes, generals, nobles, or just extremely strong cultivators in general. This time, all the outstanding young cultivators of Shuayu will have a chance, an incredible chance. Said a voice coming from inside the curtains, where the throne was. However, the people situated kilometers away could still hear that voice distinctly. That voice sounded evil and it moved in every direction, piercing into people's ears. Those who have joined the great competition of Shuayu before have become extremely strong cultivators or generals. When the crowd heard those words, their hearts started pounding violently. The 4 who had come back from the great competition of Shuayu 9 years ago and 18 years ago had already become so strong that nobody in Shuayu would dare to provoke them. Those people had become the most outstanding cultivators of the country. People from all across the 13 countries of Shuayu would join the great competition of Shuayu. How incredible was that? Many people yearned for it night and day, but they were only able to spectate because they weren't strong enough. I am absolutely not exaggerating to scare or entice you. You all have to understand that Xueyu is extremely vast. There are 13 countries and our country is the one of the smaller and weaker ones. Every country has a myriad of strong cultivators. If you want to join the great competition of Xueyu, you have to seize that opportunity and only then will you be able to compete with the geniuses of the other countries. You will be gaining invaluable experience and a greater understanding of many things. You will also be able to strengthen your body to new and unimaginable heights. Joining the great competition of Xueyu has multiple advantages. It doesn't just change your cultivation, it changes your destiny. Nobody can anticipate your future if you attend, said the voice slowly. Everybody was calmly listening to those words. The great competition of Xueyu could change a person's destiny. If they could join the great competition of Xueyu, they would also be able to leave the country of Xueyu and learn from powerful foreign cultivators. But if you want to join the great competition of Xueyu, I first have to see the level of your strength and just how gifted you are. Only after seeing your potential, will you have a chance of being presented to the emperor who will then choose the final cultivators personally. Continued the voice slowly before continuing, this time, I invited the most gifted young cultivators of Xueyu. You all have a chance. Those of you who have received my letter, please come through the dark barrier and into the middle of the circle. This will be the first selection process. Of course, the 8 high officials do not need to go through that test. Selection test. The crowd understood why the 9 dragons had created a circle of chi at that moment. It was to see if those who had received a letter could penetrate the barrier. What incredible effect would it have? The 8 high officials didn't need to go through that test. In other words, they didn't have to sit through the first test. Here I come, shouted a young cultivator. That person flew into the sky and immediately dived into the dark barrier. However, in the blink of an eye, the dark chi enveloped that person and they completely disappeared. Not even chi was left. What is going on? The crowd was frowning. That person had been swallowed by the darkness. It seemed that entering that dark barrier was extremely difficult. The first selection round had started. The next person who entered into the black barrier finally gave a horrible shriek. Waves rolled over that black barrier and then the person who entered rushed back out, but immediately fell into the water. The next person who entered into the black barrier finally gave a horrible shriek. Waves rolled over that black barrier and then the person who entered rushed back out, but immediately fell into the water. The flood dragons roared. One of them then rose up and rushed towards the person's body. It opened its huge jaws and swallowed him with a single bite. That person's entire body was sent into the stomach of a dragon. What's going on? The people's hearts started pounding violently. Was he dead? That person wasn't strong enough to enter the dark chi. His body seemed to have been burnt by that black barrier and he was immediately swallowed by the dragon when he left the barrier. How terrifying! Those who haven't received an invitation letter shouldn't try. I have invited every single outstanding young cultivator in Xueyu. If you still try without an invitation, you are just committing suicide, said a faintly discernible voice again which astonished people. The one who had just been swallowed by the dragon wasn't one of the people who received an invitation letter. People without the invitation letters shouldn't try, otherwise they would suffer the same fate. Besides, those who have received an invitation letter should announce their name before entering the black barrier through the poisonous black fog, and the time allocated for everyone here is the time it takes for an oil lamp requires to go out. It's poison. That black barrier is made of toxic fog. Poison is surrounding those black barrier. The crowd was slightly startled. The king was saying that he hadn't forgotten to invite a single person in the country. How confident. At that moment, 2 silhouettes appeared in the sky. They were extremely young. It was a pair who seemed to be a young girl and a young boy. The boy looked handsome and the girl was beautiful. When the people below saw them, they couldn't help but sigh with admiration. The only bad thing about them was that the 2 people looked unbearably arrogant. That young man glanced at the crowd and said in an indifferent tone, "You all better hurry up, don't waste my time." Ha! Waste his time? That guy was exactly as he looked, arrogant. How insufferably arrogant. He sounded like he was the protagonist of the entire event, the other people were only there as a sideshow which wasted his time. "We are from Yen Dang Mountain, we belong to the Ling clan," said the young man again. Yen Dang Mountain. The Ling clan. Many people had never heard those names before, which surprised them. But those two people had received an invitation letter, so they were probably outstanding. However, the majority of people didn't know about the Ling clan. However, a few old men looked a bit surprised. If he was from Yen Dang Mountain, he was probably their son. "From today, remember my name and remember it well, my name is Ling Tian," said that young man when he saw that many people looked shocked. He sounded even more arrogant than before. Immediately after, the crowd only saw Ling Tian step into that black poisonous fog. Under the light of the full moon, a light emerged from the black barrier. How quick! Ling Tian was so fast that it looked incredible. The crowd couldn't even follow his figure with their eyes. A light sound emerged as waves appeared on the black barrier. It looked like a slice had been created in the barrier, creating a pathway. Ling Tian and the girl then walked towards it and moved through the pathway they created. What quick swordplay! That was extremely powerful. No wonder that he is that arrogant, thought the people in the crowd. That person's name was Ling Tian and he was the first person to enter into the black barrier. After Ling Tian entered the barrier, another silhouette shot into the sky. The figure then stopped, and immediately dashed towards the depths of the black barrier. As the person was about to make contact, he shouted, "Officer of the Imperial City Guards, Shi Qiong." While Shi Qiong was moving, a flood dragon appeared and as he attacked, it roared aggressively. He then penetrated into the depths of the black barrier and through the poisonous fog. Shi Qiong and his flood dragon both penetrated into the poisonous fog. Flood dragon, he has a flood dragon spirit. The crowd was surprised. The officer of the Imperial City Guards was extremely strong. They were wondering if he might even be as strong as Ling Tian. After Shi Qiong entered the black fog, 3 other silhouettes flew into the sky towards the black fog. Those 3 people glanced at each other and continued diving. "Du Gu Clan, Du Gu Yi," said a cold and detached voice. That was another genius. He then immediately released a terrifying qi of the 3rd Xian qi layer, and then pierced into the black poisonous fog. "How you sect, Jiang Shan," said another person while releasing a mountain spirit. His entire body looked like a towering mountain at that point. He then entered the black fog which surrounded his entire body, but couldn't seem to cause the mountain to move back at all. "Luo Xia sect, Luo Yun Tian." A mysterious qi filled the atmosphere and surrounded the black poisonous fog before piercing inside. Luo Yun Tian then followed the qi he had released and entered the black poisonous fog. Those 3 people all had a method to deal with the black barrier and they all looked extremely relaxed while entering it. All of them were very young. It was clear that they were the most outstanding young people of the generation. The crowd was amazed. The geniuses of Xueyu were numerous. They were wondering just how many geniuses there were. After that, more and more people entered the black poisonous fog relying on their own methods. In the black fog, there was members of the imperial clan, the Wanshou sect. There were also some high-ranking officials of the court. But there were also some unknown young people. After a short time, there were already 29 gathered in the poisonous fog. Those 29 figures were all abnormally strong young cultivators. It seemed like each of them was just as strong as the 8 high officials of Xueyu, if not stronger. The event could have changed its name to the National Genius Gathering. People in the crowd could see that they were unable to rival the young cultivators in terms of natural abilities and strength. Most people still had cultivate for a long time and improved their cultivation with extreme difficulty. Only 29 people? Wondered the crowd at that moment. The oil lamp was about to go out. No. Some people haven't arrived yet. Lin Feng hasn't arrived yet, thought many people from the crowd. They had all thought of the same name, Lin Feng. Lin Feng had killed 12 Xian Qi layer cultivators of the Wanshou sect and 5 of their Xian level beasts, therefore, him not having received an invitation seemed impossible. The crowd weren't the only people to notice Lin Feng's absence. All those who wanted to kill Lin Feng also noticed that he hadn't arrived yet. On the side of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, Chu Zhanpeng was looking at the members of the Celestial Academy. He then said in a cold and detached way, "Didn't the Celestial Academy say that they were going to join the national competition? Where are these people then?" The one representing the Celestial Academy, Vice Principal Long Ding, just glanced at Chu Zhanpeng in an indifferent way and then ignored him. In fact, he didn't know where Lin Feng was. He wasn't going to put pressure on Lin Feng anyway, it was Lin Feng's own business. Of course, Long Ding was still convinced that Lin Feng would come. There isn't a single genius at the Celestial Academy, that's why they would never dare to join the competition, joked Chu Zhanpeng with the aim of tarnishing the image of the Celestial Academy. The Celestial Academy is composed of a bunch of weaklings, cowards and trash, that's all. They don't have a single genius. How can they even call themselves an academic institution? The Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu is a real academic institution, they can't compete with us. Various comments were spreading within the group of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. They were all meticulously adding humiliating statements about the Celestial Academy while increasing the reputation of the Holy Courtyard. The majestic and incredible Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu stole the most outstanding disciples from the largest sects of Shuiyu. Its aim was to become one of the most influential and powerful academies in the country, but now, it's been 2 years since the academy began and it has nothing good to show for it. Apart from 2 high officials of whom they are so proud of taking from other sects, not a single genius has actually risen from their ranks. All that the students of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu are able to do is brag and create a disturbance once in a while. How pitiful they are! A voice echoed from the distance and thundered through the atmosphere. That voice seemed to be as calm as a tranquil lake and as cold as freezing waters. Duan Tianlang, you only know how to raise cowardly cultivators. All those people that you took from other sects that were strong and had high natural abilities have now become a bunch of scared chickens and pitiful dogs. Are you not ashamed of yourself? When the people heard that voice, they were astonished and various comments started spreading. Those 2 statements were extremely aggressive and clear. It was a verbal attack which targeted the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. That person was even calling its students a bunch of chickens and dogs. The same person was even insulting Duan Tianlang and saying that he could only teach them how to be cowardly. At the same time, that person was asserting that the only pride of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu was the 2 high officials who had that status when they joined the institution, Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui. That voice wasn't loud as it entered everyone's ears, but it sounded extremely aggressive. In the distance, 2 bamboo rafts appeared on the water. They were calmly floating against the current at a shocking speed. There were 3 people inside those rafts. There was an extremely young man on one of those bamboo rafts. He was only about 16 years old, he looked handsome and had an honest bearing. While on the other bamboo raft, there were 2 other people, a boy and a girl. The young man looked handsome, smart and clean. His facial expression looked as limpid and deep as the waters of the lake. The young woman had a fine veil covering her face. The full moon seemed to illuminate her entire body. She looked like a celestial being. She was extremely beautiful and almost looked like she had come out of a painting. When looking at her, one had the feeling that she wasn't from the mortal world. What a beautiful scene! Thought the crowd. That scene looked so beautiful. They were not giving off a majestic air and there was no powerful energy floating around them. Those 3 people looked like they were deities as they crossed the lake. Lin Feng. When the people in the crowd saw a winged tiger was also on the bamboo raft, they narrowed their eyes. It was Lin Feng. Many people were looking at Lin Feng with murderous expressions in their eyes, especially the members of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui's faces were filled with killing intent. Many people were looking at Lin Feng with murderous expressions in their eyes, especially the members of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui's faces were filled with killing intent. Duan Tianlang's facial expression looked piercingly cold. Duan Tianlang didn't look as graceful and elegant as in the past. His hair wasn't black anymore, it had turned white, he looked miserable and lonely. It seemed like he had become much older in the short span of time. However, his eyes looked the same as before, they looked evil and much colder, so cold that coldness was piercing to the bones. Duan Tianlang's cultivation had also increased. When Lin Feng saw Duan Tianlang's eyes, he also guessed that he hadn't been wasting his time in self-pity, his cultivation and dangerous aura had clearly increased. Lin Feng didn't know that after he killed Duan Han, Duan Tianlang's hair had turned pure white and he completely lost his interest in the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. He dedicated his entire time to cultivating. He was looking forward to meeting Lin Feng again in order to kill him, he was expecting the day when he would be able to avenge his son's death. Lin Feng just said that Duan Tianlang didn't know how to educate cultivators properly, which made Duan Tianlang release a stream of deadly qi. That deadly qi destabilized the bamboo raft which Lin Feng was aboard, it caused the water of the lake to grow uneasy. Lin Feng, you will soon regret everything that you have done. Soon you will kneel down in front of me, said Chu Zhanpeng, sounding detached. He looked like he thought he was an emperor standing above the rest of the world. How long would Lin Feng continue smiling? 2 years ago, you came to the Yunhai sect, you wanted to kill me, back then you were already one of the 8 high officials, and I was only a weakling of the Qi layer, even then, I wasn't afraid of you and wouldn't kneel before you. Now, 2 years have passed and I have long since left the Qi layer, during this time I have broke through the Ling Qi layer and advanced all the way to the 2nd Xian Qi layer, but you are barely stronger than you were back then, how pitiful. The worst thing is that you actually seem pleased with yourself. On top of that, you think that now you are finally strong enough to make me kneel in front of you, it's both sad and amusing at the same time. Joked Lin Feng, which astonished everyone present. Chu Zhanpeng and Lin Feng had known each other for 2 years and they had been at odds ever since. Back then, Chu Zhanpeng was already one of the 8 high officials and Lin Feng was only at the Qi layer. Back then, in Chu Zhanpeng's eyes, Lin Feng was only an insignificant insect, a nobody. 2 years. From the Qi layer to the 2nd Xian Qi layer? What amazing natural abilities! Thought the crowd while sighing. Lin Feng used to be much weaker than everyone present. And now he had becoming the most dazzling cultivator in Shuiyu. In comparison with Lin Feng, Chu Zhanpeng had really progressed at a snail's pace, but it was clear to everybody that the higher a person cultivated, the harder it was to improve. At high cultivation levels, breaking through to the next layer was extremely difficult. Brother, it seems like his cultivation speed is even faster than yours, said the girl on Ling Tian's side at that moment while smiling radiantly, which made an extreme coldness invade Ling Tian's face. He groaned coldly and said, so what? Even if his cultivation speed is good, he has only broken through to the 2nd Xian Qi layer, that's all. I destroyed his statue in Yangzhou City and I can destroy him anytime if I wanted to. Of course, you have broken through to the 3rd Xian Qi layer and your sword is as fast as lightning, you could easily kill him, said the young girl while smiling, which made Ling Tian's facial expression look slightly better. While looking proud of himself, Ling Tian replied, that's obvious, yes. But at that moment, Ling Tian was thinking something to the contrary, he killed 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer a short time ago. And 3 of them had broken through to the 3rd Xian Qi layer. None of them was able to escape with their life. They were slaughtered like chickens. His battle ability cannot be underestimated, it's monstrous. If he doesn't offend me, I will not go out of my way to offend him. Even though Ling Tian was arrogant and proud, he wasn't stupid. If he wanted to kill 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, he could, but it would still require a strenuous effort. However, Lin Feng managed to do it, it was quite clear from that how strong he was. The young girl looked pensive. Brother, you have broken through to the 3rd Xian Qi layer and Lin Feng has broken through to the 2nd Xian Qi layer. However, he is much stronger than some cultivators of the 3rd Xian Qi layer, if you fight against him, it might be an extremely difficult battle. Maybe by relying on your extremely quick sword, you could win, but it would be a costly victory. The best option would be for you and him to not fight each other," thought the young girl. When she had heard that Lin Feng had killed 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, she was extremely surprised by the event. She wouldn't have thought that the insignificant Marquis of Yangzhou City was so strong. Chu Zhanpeng's facial expression looked ice cold, and he then said while fixedly staring at Lin Feng, "You will regret everything." "Humph." Lin Feng gave a cold smile then just ignored Chu Zhanpeng. He raised his head and looked at the people on the banks of the lake. "Duanren City, my name is Yunfei Yang." At that moment, far away in the distance, a silhouette appeared. That person was flying through the sky. That person was as fast as an illusion. "Even though I haven't received an invitation letter, I think the geniuses of Shuiyu and I can learn from each other, don't blame me." That person's voice filled the atmosphere. They then immediately entered the black fog without anything to protect themselves at all. While that person was moving through the black fog started to move in an insane way and opened itself, allowing that person move through it. Yunfei Yang could easily move through the middle of the barrier. He hasn't received an invitation letter. The crowd was astonished. Immediately after, they looked at the throne above the water. Didn't he say that he hadn't forgotten anybody in the entire country? That Yunfei Yang was monstrously strong though. "Since you have the necessary strength, you can," said the king, sounding natural and unrestrained. Duanren City. Lin Feng was astonished. He hadn't heard news of Duanren City in a very long time. The city he had set on fire surprisingly gave birth to a genius. Lin Feng then looked at that person. Yunfei Yang's voice sounded heroic, his smile looked natural and unrestrained, his entire body looked like it contained the strength of 1,000 mountains. He also looked like he had more hidden cards than what he was showing. Had that person really come from the border of Shuiyu? Or did he come from the other side of the border? Was he a foreigner? "The oil lamp will go out soon," said a voice coming from the direction of the throne. Lin Feng and Meng Qing glanced at each other while smiling. Immediately after, their bodies rose up into the air and they moved towards the black fog. But Lin Feng didn't use his strength to break through the black fog, he just floated high into the sky and then slowly moved inside the barrier through the hole in the top. He calmly flew over the fog and over the top of black barrier and landed inside. Duan Feng didn't follow him, even though he had received an invitation letter. He was convinced that it wasn't the right time to expose his strength. He just wanted to observe them. When the crowd saw Lin Feng's actions, they were speechless. Lin Feng didn't go through the black fog and simply flew into the hole at the top. Was that allowed? That guy. The crowd was speechless. The black fog was surrounding the black barrier. Everybody knew that they could enter the barrier from the hole in the top of the circle, but nobody had dared to do that. It was competition for geniuses. Wasn't that method too simple? Wasn't it too humiliating? The king had even said that the poisonous black fog was surrounding the black barrier so it would prevent many people from reaching it, but if everybody just flew over the top of it like Lin Feng, then couldn't everyone reach the inside of the black barrier? Lin Feng didn't care, he didn't think the same way as the others. He didn't need to waste his strength on the black barrier creating a majestic show when there was a path already open. Lin Feng moved like a shadow, he was extremely quick, that was already an evidence of how strong he was. Following Yunfei Yang, Lin Feng and Meng Qing then moved inside the black barrier. Inside the black fog, there were 32 people. The weakest were at the first Xian Qi layer, but there were only a few of them. Some of the strongest ones had broken through to the third or fourth Xian Qi layer. Such high natural abilities and cultivation in young people was rare, to the extent that many senior cultivators weren't even been able to reach that level. On top of that, amongst those people, none of them were older than 30 years old. "Time's up," said King at that moment while raising his head. Immediately after, he rose into the air, the entire crowd was in front of him and he said, "Everybody come to the edge of the black fog." Ha! Everybody was surprised, he wanted them to move to the edge of the black fog. What did he mean? But they had no right to be disobedient, so they all moved towards the edge of the black fog, forming a big arch around the black fog. Those who have received an invitation letter can be considered as the geniuses of Shuyu. They can remain cool-headed even when their lives are threatened. They are tenacious and have an incredible determination. They are considered authentically strong cultivators because of these qualities. "Nobody is allowed to move," said the king slowly. The crowd frowned. Nobody was allowed to move. What did he intend to do? At that moment, the 9 dragons moving over the water started spinning at full speed. They raised their heads and chanted loudly. The black fog then started rolling through the atmosphere. The chi of the black barrier also started undulating in an insane way. It turned into a storm. Besides, the king moved his hands and the black poison seemed to condense. The black poisonous chi started to block the moonlight. It was blotting out the sky and covering up the earth. Then, it moved towards the crowd and enveloped them. In a flash, everybody was swallowed by the black fog. Inside of the fog, kill anyone as you please, the only rule is to kill. Spare no effort. The only way to become stronger is to constantly be surrounded by death. Only through such experiences will you be able to become the most dazzling cultivator of Shuyu. If you want to join the great competition of Shuyu and leave Shuyu, you must prove that you are strong and must achieve glorious accomplishments. Those were the last words people heard before drowning in the black fog. The king rose both his hands and started making some hand movements. It looked strange, as if he was casting a strange type of magic. The black fog was unceasingly rolling through the atmosphere until it gradually became calm. Inside the black fog, a different scene was occurring. What's that? The spectators were shivering. The black fog started to turn into a clear gray bubble. They could clearly see through the fog. Inside the clear fog, they could see the young and outstanding cultivators. However, what astonished the crowd was that the people inside, even though they were all very close to each other, it seemed like they were unable to see the other person. The people inside couldn't see through the clear fog? What's going on? The crowd looked stupefied. How strange. The people who were inside the fog looked like they had lost all sense of direction. Some people were separated by 2 or 3 meters but couldn't see the other person. They were clumsily moving around and many were moving very cautiously. The people in the crowd raised their heads and looked at the king. He was still moving his hands. They couldn't understand what was happening. It was an illusion. Indeed, the people inside were trapped inside an illusion created by the king. Black fog, whispered people in the crowd. They understood what it really meant at that moment. Those inside the fog had become blind and their senses were restricted. They were prisoners inside an illusion. The king had created an illusion for them. Before being made a prisoner of that gray bubble, the competitors heard the king's last sentence: they could kill other people as they pleased. After having heard that sentence, it seemed like they had all been transported to a completely different world, a very strange one. Lin Feng and Meng Qing were no longer together. They could no longer see the other person. A moment before, they entered the fog together, but now, they had been completely separated from the other. It's an illusion. Lin Feng raised his head and looked in front of him. The full moon and the crowd of people had disappeared. The only thing left was a palace, an extremely large palace. It seemed like it had no end. Lin Feng had the impression that he was alone inside an extremely large room, and on top of that, it seemed like that palace had no end. Anyone who could notice the drastic changes in that landscape could understand that it was an illusion created by the king, but then again, knowing that it was an illusion would not help them. They were still trapped inside the illusion and everything seemed real to them. It seems like a bloodbath will be inevitable in here, thought Lin Feng. He then immediately started walking. He didn't stay where he was trying to find a solution to break the illusion. He first wanted to find Meng Qing and then he would think about the rest. The people confined in the illusion weren't like the majority of those outside. They were outstanding cultivators. There wasn't a single weakling. Lin Feng was worried about Meng Qing, even if she was very strong. It looks so real. Lin Feng was calmly walking in that palace very slowly. The floor was made of bluestone. Suddenly, many voices started echoing in the air and then it became silent again. That vast area didn't look like an illusion, it looked very real. Lin Feng arrived inside a room and suddenly a powerful qi enveloped his body which surprised him. Immediately after, the sound of a chaotic wind rushed towards him. Lin Feng smiled coldly and released a terrifying energy, it was the energy of his murderous sword. It rose into the air and it made the entire palace vibrate. The facial expression of the person who had just attacked him changed drastically. It seemed like there were restrictions inside of that bubble, it seemed impossible to remove the effects of the illusion. One could only rely on one's intuition and hearing to determine if there was another person near them. That person had only been able to hear Lin Feng's steps as he waited to ambush him, so he couldn't possibly know that it was Lin Feng that he was attacking. "Wait, wait!" shouted that person loudly, but they didn't stop launching attacks. They were saying, "Wait," but they continued to attack the other person. Would anyone stop and trust the opponent who just attacked them? Impossible. In that place, the sound of breathing was the only way to determine if the opponent was alive or not. Who would trust the other person? The person had noticed that Lin Feng's energy had halted, but he still did not stop his attack on Lin Feng. Lin Feng had no other choice but to defend himself. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. His sword qi whistled through the air and pierced into the opponent's fist. Blood burst forth into the air. The one who had attacked Lin Feng could no longer use his hand, but it did not stop there. At the moment when Lin Feng's hand and the other person's fist collided, that person gave a horrible shriek. Lin Feng's qi sliced the opponent's hand in two, then their forearm, then their arm and ultimately removed their head. The first cultivator of the Xian qi layer had died. What a monstrous strength! Under the light of the full moon, the crowd all lifted their heads and looked at the scene, it made them shiver. They couldn't sense Lin Feng's energy but they could see the result of the battle. The gray bubble was even vibrating under the immense power. Lin Feng had attacked once and instantly killed a cultivator of the Xian qi layer. The most surprising thing was that Lin Feng was attacked by surprise by his opponent. A silhouette emerged from the black fog which astonished the crowd. It was a corpse. It was the person who had just been killed by Lin Feng. After dying, the bodies were thrown out of the illusion. It was an illusion but people could still be killed inside. That illusion was terrifying. In the illusion, Lin Feng had killed someone and then the person vanished, that stupefied him. He was thrown out of the illusion. He looked like he didn't understand. Had the person just been ejected from the illusion or were they actually dead? He frowned and then concluded that person was dead. A moment before, the blood had been real. Besides, at the moment when the illusion had started, the king had said that they could kill as they pleased, even though the illusion was a fake world, the death inside it was completely real. What a boring game, thought Lin Feng. This was a game created by the king, he was using the lives of young geniuses as toys. In order to choose the most outstanding cultivators, he could have set up a huge fighting arena and organized a tournament. But instead, he had chosen to put them in an illusionary world where they were blinded by blackness. In such circumstances, people would just randomly kill each other until only the strongest were left. Even if all those people had incredibly high natural abilities, wasn't it useless? Their talent and lives didn't matter to the king. What he wanted was to see the final victory of his game. The others didn't matter, if they died, it just meant that they were worthless. Ah! A horrible shriek spread in the air on Lin Feng's right which surprised him. He started to think about the situation. A moment before, the one who attacked me by surprise came from my left, and that shout came from my right. Thought Lin Feng. It seemed like the palace was composed of endless rooms, there were people fighting on his left and on his right. Oh, and in front of me as well. Lin Feng was suddenly dumbstruck. There was a door in front of him, and there were doors on his left and right as well. Behind those doors, there were people. 9 large square-shaped rooms constitute the palace. Sharp lights twinkled in Lin Feng's eyes. He raised his head and moved forwards obliquely. There was also something above. Lin Feng suddenly frowned. Doors, there were more doors. All those who were competing were behind different doors. It's a death game, this illusion is obviously a death game. Thought Lin Feng, whose heart was gradually being invaded by coldness. Lin Feng was surrounded by people. Lin Feng couldn't forget that detail. Behind each door, there was a terrifyingly strong cultivator. Ha! At that moment, Lin Feng frowned. He turned around and saw something not far in front of him. A pair of eyes furtively glanced at him from there. As expected, there are people under me as well. Thought Lin Feng, as if he had suddenly understood something. After furtively glancing at Lin Feng, that person slowly moved back into the floor, pretending that they didn't see anything. Lin Feng smiled as if he found the situation amusing. Wait, wait! Shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice which surprised the person. They couldn't just continue leaving. They could only see Lin Feng's smile in the darkness. He looked amused. I didn't know that you were here, Your Excellency. No problem, first come here and then we'll talk. Said Lin Feng while smiling, which surprised his interlocutor. That person suddenly looked extremely irresolute. A subtle sound emerged in the atmosphere. That person smiled, their lips were shaking. Their face turned deathly pale, they were terrified. The top of the person's head burst open and blood gushed out to create a blood fountain. It was terrifying. Lin Feng was also surprised when he saw that. Under that person, there was somebody else that emerged through the door. How cruel! Thought Lin Feng, feeling a chill run through his heart. Immediately after, he moved forwards and released a thick and dense deadly energy. At that moment, the original person's face was completely still, there was not a trace of life in their body. Lin Feng moved towards the body, slowly, step by step. In the room under his feet, there was absolutely no sound, but Lin Feng knew that there was someone. And that person's actions were extremely cruel. Lin Feng jumped down in a flash and a rumbling sound filled the air. A hole the size of a door immediately appeared beneath him. Lin Feng allowed himself to fall into it. A terrifying deadly energy enveloped Lin Feng's body, which surprised him. In front of him, there was a huge stone which had transformed into a spike. It was shooting towards his chest at full speed. It was extremely fast. Jiang Shan. Lin Feng's facial expression suddenly looked ice-cold. That true cultivator was a core disciple of the Haoyu sect, Jiang Shan. What a coincidence! Said Lin Feng coldly. His hand through the air while releasing monstrous amounts sword energy as a whistling sound emerged in the air. The extremely sharp spike broke into pieces and disappeared. Lin Feng's sword energy was much sharper than a sharpened spike. Jiang Shan moved his hands and in a flash, all the rocks in the area started to shoot towards Lin Feng. Rumbling sounds emerged in the atmosphere as the rocks were broken by the sword energy. Jiang Shan was also pushed backwards from the collision. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He hadn't thought that he would come across Lin Feng so early. The person that he wished to encounter the least was Lin Feng. Lin Feng had been able to kill 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng didn't rely on influence or other people to protect him, he was an authentic hot-blooded cultivator. Even though Jiang Shan had recently broken through to the second Xian Qi layer, just like Lin Feng was able to kill cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer, which Jiang Shan wouldn't even dare to attempt. The Haoyu sect is filled with pathetic cowards, as expected. Lin Feng looked calm and detached. He then moved towards Jiang Shan, step by step, which sent a shiver down Jiang Shan's spine. Lin Feng, the problems between the Haoyu sect and you should be solved by Chu Zhanpeng and you. We are not enemies. There is no need for you to kill me, said Jiang Shan in a weak and timid voice. He didn't dare fight against Lin Feng. We are not enemies. Lin Feng smiled in an ice-cold way. Jiang Shan's words were ridiculous. Lin Feng pointed at the corpse and said in a cold and detached way, "Were you and him enemies?" "I don't think so, but you still attacked him by surprise and killed him. Can you explain that?" Jiang Shan was surprised. He was inside the black fog, he was obviously prepared to kill people. He had seen the opportunity and instantly killed the other person. He had an opportunity, of course, he couldn't let it slip. But Lin Feng was asking him for a reason and Jiang Shan didn't know how to reply. Killing people weaker than you doesn't require a reason. If I have to give a reason, let's just say that it is because you are a member of the Hao sect, that's a sufficient reason for you to die. Said Lin Feng, whose deadly energy was becoming denser and denser. He then continued slowly walking towards Jiang Shan, which made the latter narrow his eyes. Ice-cold lights were flashing through his eyes. A thick and heavy energy emerged from his body, it was his spirit. A mountain spirit appeared behind him. "Killing me will not be so easy," shouted Jiang Shan while raising his hand and swiping it through the air. In a flash, a huge rock shot towards Lin Feng, emitting rumbling sound. The rock was large enough to mash Lin Feng's body into paste. Lin Feng was calmly looking at the rock that was hurtling towards him with the aim of turning him into a puree. He waved his hand and a terrifying sword energy emerged from his fingers. Boom! The rock was sliced open the sword and then burst into powder. After destroying the rock, Lin Feng looked at Jiang Shan, he was trying to escape in another direction at his fastest speed. What a deceitful guy! Lin Feng smiled coldly as he moved with the wind. His movements were made at an incredible speed. Jiang Shan, whose escape was chaotic, suddenly started shaking, he turned around and saw a terrifying sword energy moving towards him. His facial expression drastically changed. Lin Feng was so fast that he had already arrived behind his opponent. His terrifying sword energy was moving closer and it felt like it was going to lacerate his entire body. "Don't kill me!" shouted Jiang Shan furiously. His entire body, which was as large as a mountain, launched towards Lin Feng again. He was so desperate that his fight or flight reflex had instinctively caused him to turn and fight. "Not kill you." Lin Feng was releasing deadly energy, his hand moved down and a deafening sound filled the atmosphere. A sword light appeared and the gigantic mountain spirit was split apart. Jiang Shan was astonished. Lin Feng's sword attacks were extremely powerful. "Get lost!" shouted Jiang Shan furiously when he saw that his rock spirit was being suppressed. His entire body transformed into a small mountain as he rushed through the air. His entire body was surrounded by rocks which were orbiting him. Jiang Shan's entire body seemed just like a sturdy mountain as he threw himself at Lin Feng. He was extremely quick. He started to release a powerful energy as he rushed forward. If Lin Feng took the attack head-on, if he didn't die, he would be severely disfigured. "The wind!" shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice. He immediately retreated with the speed of the wind. He then slowly raised a pure chi sword which was filled with deadly energy. "Come and face me, if you want to kill me!" shouted Jiang Shan furiously when he noticed that he couldn't even touch Lin Feng's clothes. Lin Feng was so fast that he could dodge while maintaining the distance between them. Lin Feng ignored Jiang Shan as the power contained in his pure chi sword was growing stronger and stronger. It was terrifying. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. A deadly chi filled the air, the entire atmosphere was filled with the whistling sound of his sword. Immediately after, his sword descended and moved towards Jiang Shan. The ground under Lin Feng's feet cracked and a silhouette rose from beneath him. Lin Feng's sword, which he was using to attack Jiang Shan, slightly shook. The person who had emerged was filled with killing intent. "Jiang Shan, kill him!" shouted another voice suddenly. Another silhouette descended from the ceiling and moved towards Lin Feng. That person was releasing a deadly energy. That person's target was Lin Feng. There was one person in front of Lin Feng, one person under and another above. There were 3 people and they were all attacking Lin Feng at the same time. "Die!" When Jiang Shan noticed what was happening, he seemed to regain all his confidence. He immediately stopped all thoughts of retreat and moved towards Lin Feng again. Lin Feng looked extremely cold, the deadly energy around him was extremely powerful. Besides, Jiang Shan was also ready to risk his life to kill Lin Feng. Even though Lin Feng was certain that he could kill Jiang Shan, he wasn't so sure about the two others who were attacking him. If he decided to fight, the situation would be extremely dangerous. Therefore, Lin Feng thought that it was better to leave than to kill Jiang Shan. His body turned and in a flash he rushed back. Explosive sounds spread in the air, it came from the place where Lin Feng was just standing. The atmosphere seemed like it was going to turn into powder under such a dense concentration of attacks. It is a good thing that I am quick, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng could sense the restrictions in that palace. A moment before, when the others attacked him by surprise, if he wasn't fast enough, he would have died a cruel death. Even though his attacks were powerful, what was the point if he took the enemy's attacks? Even if the opponents were not as strong as him, if their attacks reached his body, they would still cause lethal injury. Lin Feng's facial expression looked ice cold. He then flew into the air and looked at the three silhouettes in front of him. Those three people were Jiang Shan of the Haoyu sect, Luo Yuntian of the Luo Xia sect and Du Guyi. Luo Yuntian was the best disciple of the Luo Xia sect. The fact that he wanted to kill Lin Feng wasn't surprising. The other person was probably from the Du Gu clan. Lin Feng had humiliated Du Gu Shang in the past and Du Gu Xiao. Du Guyi was probably from the same clan as them. The fact that those three people weren't able to kill Lin Feng even when using a surprise attack caused them all to pull a long face. Jiang Shan and Luo Yuntian had broken through to the second Xian Qi layer while Du Guyi had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer. A moment before, they couldn't kill Lin Feng. It seemed like with Lin Feng's reflexes, fighting against him wouldn't be so easy. Besides, at the same time, many people around the Shangjiang Lake were watching the scene with Lin Feng and the three attackers. Lin Feng was fighting alone against three people. What would be the outcome of that battle? Besides, the crowd could also see what the others were doing. More than a dozen people had already died inside that bubble. They had been heartlessly slaughtered. Inside that bubble, nobody was a saint. Somewhere above Lin Feng, there was the pure and holy Meng Qing. She looked incredibly beautiful as she was looking extremely hard for Lin Feng. She was going to every single room as she searched for him, but all she could see was the remnants of battle. At the moment when she was about to go downstairs, a loud sound emerged. Suddenly a person appeared before her. It was the officer of the Imperial City Guards, Shi Qiong. His woman. Shi Qing was surprised and then a cold light flashed through his eyes. Meng Qing was Lin Feng's lover and because of Lin Feng, Shi Qiong had lost the woman he loved, Duan Xinyi. Chapter 424, The Price of Attacking. Meng Qing didn't feel like paying attention to Shi Qiong, but when she saw that he was looking at her with evil intentions, she couldn't help but release an ice-cold qi which rushed straight for him. Huh, such a warm breeze, grinned Shi Qiong. Last time, Lin Feng had crushed his pride and taught him a lesson. After that, he locked himself away in cultivation and practiced until he broke through to the next layer. At that moment, Shi Qiong had broken through to the fourth Xian Qi layer. Amongst the group of people, he seemed to have the highest cultivation level. Nobody could compare to him. After all, the high officials were not inside the fog. Lin Feng, you stole my woman, now I will have revenge. Wait until we meet, I will look forward to see your reaction, thought Shi Qiong coldly. After having broken through to the fourth Xian Qi layer, he had gone to see Duan Xinyi, but she ignored him. In her eyes, there was only Lin Feng. No matter how high Shi Qiong's cultivation level became, Duan Xinyi would not even look at him. Shi Qiong hated Lin Feng. At that moment, a small sound emerged in the atmosphere. Shi Qiong was surprised. He suddenly moved back to see what was happening and noticed a silhouette emerging near them. He frowned as a cold light flashed in his eyes. When Ling Tian saw Meng Qing and Shi Qiong, he was surprised. He then immediately gave a strange smile and said, "You guys continue with what you were doing. I didn't see anything." When Meng Qing heard Ling Tian, she released an ice-cold energy towards him, but Ling Tian simply ignored her. He smiled and said, "I will go and kill some other people. I won't bother you." When he finished talking, he turned back and walked away. At that moment, he also knew that the palace was divided into 9 rooms and that there were people everywhere, above and under, as well as on each of his sides, therefore he wasn't worried about a lack of people to kill. At that moment, Meng Qing didn't know that the one she was looking for was directly beneath her feet. Beneath them, Lin Feng and the 3 others were in a confrontation as sword energy emitted whistling sounds through the air. It was terrifying and piercingly cold. Sword energy had invaded the entire atmosphere. Jiang Shan, Luo Yuntian and Du Guyi had separated and surrounded Lin Feng. None of them dared act carelessly. They didn't dare to look down on Lin Feng. They considered him as an extremely strong opponent. Maybe the people are watching us from outside. The most important thing now is to control my power and not reveal my full strength, thought Lin Feng. He was only guessing these things, but he was right. People really were watching them from outside the fog. They could see everyone clearly and did not have to focus on a single individual. "The 3 of you will die," said Lin Feng coldly. A deadly energy followed his words and shot through the atmosphere towards the 3 opponents. "Just because you say so." "Ha, we will see," said Du Guyi coldly, who was directly in front of Lin Feng. At the same time, he looked at Luo Yuntian and Jiang Shan and said, "We have to give our all. If we want to kill him, we can't afford to spare any effort." "All right," said the 2 others while nodding. They couldn't afford to hold back. Gigantic rocks started to cover Jiang Shan's body. As his body started to grow in size, covered by rocks, he looked like a giant in the form of a mountain. Magnificent rosy lights then emerged from Luo Yuntian's body, but those beautiful lights were filled with deadly energy. "Die!" shouted Du Guyi, and in a flash, those 3 people threw themselves at Lin Feng while releasing their full power. Boom! Jiang Shan stomped his foot into the ground, which made the floor shake violently. Even though his entire body looked like a giant mountain, he was still able to move at incredible speed. In a few steps, he had already arrived in front of Lin Feng and unleashed a heavy punch into the air. That punch was filled with endless strength and contained the will to crush Lin Feng. Lin Feng's hand shook and a sword immediately appeared. Then, rumbling and cracking sound filled the air. A crevasse started to appear on the rocky fist, then even more cracks started to appear. However, as Jiang Shan condensed his energy, the crevasse started to disappear, as if nothing had happened. By then, Du Guyi and Luo Yuntian had arrived in front of Lin Feng. Du Guyi raised his fist, which was filled with evil energy, and unleashed his attack straight towards Lin Feng. Besides, Luo Yuntian's attack was terrifying. It was filled with endless strength and combined with his deadly energy. Wind, free and unrestrained like the wind. Lin Feng's body started to gently float. As the attacks grew closer, he started to drift on the wind. In an instant, he had already appeared a great distance away. His speed was astonishing. But Du Guyi and the other 2 knew that this battle was going to be extremely difficult, so they were not surprised. They reacted quickly and prepared to unleash new attacks against Lin Feng. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng with incredible ferocity. His sword rose into the air as his sword energy filled the entire palace. A thunderous rumbling noise emerged in the atmosphere and the palace started to vibrate. Like the mountain. Jiang Shan's facial expression slightly changed. He took a step forward and his body grew even larger. He seemed to fully transform into a large mountain. "I will block him, you 2 will need to finish him off," shouted Jiang Shan. After transforming into a gigantic mountain, he threw himself towards Lin Feng's sword, as if he planned to block the sword with his life. The palace was shaking with an intense power. Jiang Shan's stone body was starting to break. Large pieces of rock were crashing around him. His gigantic stone body looked like it was going to burst into pieces. Solid mountain! Shouted Jiang Shan furiously. He then slammed his feet into the ground again. The stones which had broken away from his body started to gather again. Lin Feng's sword didn't seem to hold the power to completely destroy him. Die! Shouted Du Guyi and Luo Yuntian furiously. Their deadly energies were rushing through the atmosphere towards Lin Feng. Jiang Shan had decided to block Lin Feng's attacks. How could they let go of this perfect opportunity to attack? Roar! A purple light burst into reality and what seemed to be an endless stream of purple snakes came into being. The snakes immediately rushed towards his two attackers. In the blink of an eye, Du Guyi and Luo Yuntian were surrounded by the army of purple snakes which wrapped themselves around their bodies. An extremely sharp chi emerged from Du Guyi's body and started to cut through the purple snakes, but Luo Yuntian was too weak. He was struggling and it required a great deal of effort for him to break free. Die! A dazzling light illuminated the atmosphere as a cross-shaped light appeared. Luo Yuntian, who was struggling with the purple snakes, then felt a sudden pain coming from his chest. He lowered his head and saw a large cross-shaped wound was going through his chest. An incredible quantity of blood started to pour from his wound and his organs started to shift. His facial muscles started to twitch. He was currently suffering in untold agony. Break! Shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice. Luo Yuntian's body abruptly started to shake violently. He could feel the organs inside starting to rupture. His face was locked in an intense suffering. After that terrifying attack, he slowly closed his eyes and collapsed. After that, he disappeared from the illusion, as if he was never there to begin with. He died. Jiang Shan's giant body was formed from stone, but his heart wasn't made of stone. It was currently violently pounding in his chest. Lin Feng's attacks had a terrifying lethality. It was monstrous. If they gave him even a small opportunity, he would use it to kill them. Lin Feng glanced at Jiang Shan for a second and then ignored him. Since Jiang Shan had incredible defense, Lin Feng decided to ignore him for the time being. He had already killed one of his attackers, now he had to kill the other one, and then he could focus on Jiang Shan. You think I would let you attack me by surprise? Lin Feng was staring coldly at Du Guyi. The myriad of purple snakes kept moving through the atmosphere. There were so many of them that it was like a nightmare. When Du Guyi saw Lin Feng's pitch-black eyes filled with cold deadly energy, he started to regret that he encountered Jiang Shan and Lin Feng. That opportunity seemed too good, so he couldn't let it slip. Besides, the Du Gu clan also wanted to settle a grudge with Lin Feng, so it seemed like a simple choice to attack when he saw Lin Feng. But the three of them had acted together to fight Lin Feng. They had already unleashed multiple attacks on him, and the result was that one of them had died. It's your turn, said Lin Feng's, whose eyes looked piercingly cold. The purple snakes roared and slowly merged together, which emitted a magnificent purple radiance. They turned into a gigantic dragon which looked incomparably terrifying. Its two gigantic eyes looked extremely evil. It no longer looked like a spirit, it looked like a genuine flesh and blood, ferocious beast. Go! Shouted Lin Feng. The gigantic dragon moved towards Du Guyi, creating chaos in the air with each movement. Du Guyi was stupefied. Immediately after, his body transformed into a rainbow as he tried to escape. An incredible cultivator of the third Xian Qi layer, when facing Lin Feng, was cowardly trying to escape. He didn't dare fight against him. Wind movement. Lin Feng smiled coldly and rushed forward with incredible speed. Each of his movements seemed smooth, as if he felt no resistance. He brandished a sword and Du Guyi felt the incoming danger. He turned around, unleashed a powerful punch towards the sword. Roar! At that precise moment, the purple dragon appeared beside him and constricted his lower body. It opened its gigantic mouth, revealing its sharp teeth as they moved closer to Du Guyi's head. Du Guyi's facial expression drastically changed. He then released a terrifying pure chi which rushed towards the dragon. At the same time, he was struggling in an attempt to break free. However, in his terror, he had forgotten about Lin Feng. A moment before, there were three of them fighting against Lin Feng, but at that moment, he was fighting alone against Lin Feng and a ferocious dragon. Die! A sword filled with deadly energy descended. Blood splashed high into the air. Du Guye's face froze. The purple dragon bit down on his head and swallowed it, killing him in the most cruel way. Chapter 425, The Humiliation of the Haoyu Sect. Jiang Shan was stupefied. New rocks continued to form his body, but at that moment, he no longer had any confidence. He didn't understand how Lin Feng, who had only broken through to the second Xian Qi layer, could defeat people of the same level and even people at the third Xian Qi layer in such a relaxed manner. Besides, he had the impression that Lin Feng hadn't even used all of his strength yet. Lin Feng was still hiding his real power. But even with that amount of power, those three attackers, three so-called geniuses, couldn't fight against Lin Feng in terms of both speed and strength. Even though Jiang Shan was extremely strong and had an amazing defense, he also understood that in a one-on-one battle against Lin Feng, he had no chance of survival. Lin Feng suddenly turned around and looked towards him, which made Jiang Shan's facial expression freeze. Was he going to end up like the other two? Was he going to get slaughtered in a similar cruel way? When thinking about that, his terror started to grow. He had put great efforts into his cultivation. It hadn't been easy for him to reach such a level. It hadn't been easy to become the top core disciple of the Haoyu sect. Everybody worshipped him and his future was supposed to be magnificent and filled with glory. Could he afford to die like that? Jiang Shan didn't want to die. He was afraid of dying, especially after having seen Du Guye's head get swallowed by the dragon. Especially after watching the two other bodies disappear. Jiang Shan was starting to get the feeling that life was an extremely fragile thing. Let me go. If you let me live, I will always obey your orders, said Jiang Shan while looking at Lin Feng. He then added, if you need help with anything, I will help, even if you want to destroy the Haoyu sect. Lin Feng looked like he wanted to burst into laughter as the situation was extremely funny. That was a genius of the Haoyu sect, ready to betray when things got dangerous. How ridiculous. I will deal with the Haoyu sect myself, I don't need your help, said Lin Feng in a cold and detached tone. The head of the terrifying purple dragon was rising into the air. Its gigantic eyes were looking down at Jiang Shan, which made him start to shake with fear. Du Guyi wasn't able to fight against that dragon. Jiang Shan knew that he would be even less likely to survive, so what could he do? What can I do for you to let me go? Asked Jiang Shan. No matter what, I will not let you go, replied Lin Feng calmly. He then took a step forwards, which made Jiang Shan tremble. As Lin Feng was getting nearer and nearer, Jiang Shan was growing more and more scared. Was he going to die? Jiang Shan hadn't thought that fighting against Lin Feng would lead to his death. A thumping sound then filled the air, which surprised Lin Feng. He only saw Jiang Shan kneeling down and prostrating himself. There is no intense and deep-seated hatred between us. Why do you want to kill me? Please. I will do whatever you ask, shouted Jiang Shan, whose face turned scarlet red. Lin Feng looked like he was going to double over with laughter. Outside of the illusion, the crowd by the lake was watching everything. They were astonished, especially the members of the Haoyu sect. A genius of the Haoyu sect, their best core disciple, was kneeling down in front of Lin Feng and begging him. How ridiculous! But Lin Feng was really extremely strong. His strength was so profound that everybody was secretly shocked. After all, the people who had seen Lin Feng kill 12 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer weren't numerous. They were all people from the Celestial Academy, but at that moment, the whole crowd saw Lin Feng easily defeat 3 genius cultivators who belonged to 3 of the greatest spheres of influence in the country. Actually, calling them geniuses wasn't the right. The term genius was relative. It depended on whom a cultivator was facing. There was a great deal of people who were young and had already broken through to the Xian Qi layer. That itself was a rare achievement, but in front of Lin Feng, it meant nothing. The worst part was that those 3 people were supposed to be stronger than him. But at that moment, 2 of them were already dead and one of them was kneeling in front of Lin Feng begging for his life. could they still be called geniuses? The people of the Hallyu sect were all pulling long faces. If their most talented disciple had to die, it wasn't such a big deal, but he made such a shameful display in front of everybody. Millions of people watched the most talented disciple of the Hallyu sect kneel down in front of Lin Feng and beg for his life, which gave Chu Qing the feeling that he was being slapped by each of the millions of people. His face felt extremely as hot and painful as if he was actually being slapped. Jiang Shan was making him lose face. At that moment, Chu Zhanpeng and Lin Qian, who were with the group from the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, also felt embarrassed. Piece of trash, if Lin Feng doesn't kill you, I will personally kill you, thought Chu Zhanpeng. He looked glum and released a deadly energy. When he watched the three people attacking Lin Feng, he felt relieved and confident. Lin Feng's strength wasn't as monstrous as the rumors. If Lin Feng came out, Chu Zhanpeng would definitely be able to kill him. However, Chu Zhanpeng wouldn't need to kill Jiang Shan himself. Even though he was kneeling down in front of Lin Feng, he wasn't showing any signs of forgiving him. Lin Feng was unmoving when it came to his enemies. Jiang Shan's body was then sent out from inside the illusion. Chu Zhanpeng let out a long sigh. His silhouette turned into a gigantic rock, and in a flash, he appeared above the lake. Boom! Yun Fei Yang had even come across Ling Tian. He was the only person who managed to escape after fighting against Ling Tian. Therefore, Yun Fei Yang was extremely mysterious. People didn't know anything about him. They didn't even know how strong he would be if he fought. In the people's opinion, those left inside the illusion were the strongest and most talented. If they came across such people on the outside, they would be extremely scared. People were scared of Shi Qiong and Lin Feng the most. Shi Qiong was fighting against Meng Qing. If Lin Feng moved up, he would definitely encounter the situation. But Lin Feng, who was inside the illusion, couldn't see the events like the crowd outside who could see everything. At that moment, he was wandering around like a blind man. Everybody was paying close attention to him. Lin Feng didn't feel at ease. This game reminded him of the memories from his previous world. He had that same old feeling of being a toy in someone else's hands. But Lin Feng also understood that his strength wasn't enough to break the illusion, so all he could do was abide by its rules and find the people he wanted to kill. Chapter 426, Planned Actions. Lin Feng didn't waste any time. There were extremely strong cultivators inside the illusion and it was dangerous. He met Ling Tian near Duan Wuya's residence and he seemed extremely strong. Lin Feng could sense an overflowing power. There was also Shi Qiong. Shi Qiong and Lin Feng had already fought. Back then, Shi Qiong had only broken through to the third Xian Qi layer, and during the battle, he revealed his flood dragon spirit. It was extremely powerful. After that, he had confined himself and cultivated even harder, which enabled him to rapidly break through and improve his strength. Those two were both powerful and harbored ill will towards Lin Feng. If Meng Qing came across them, how terrifying would that be? Besides, inside the illusion, there wasn't a single weak person. Even though Meng Qing was extremely strong, if Jiang Shan and the others had acted together to fight against Meng Qing instead of Lin Feng, it would have been a terrible result. Therefore, Lin Feng couldn't delay his search for Meng Qing. His silhouette flickered and he arrived in front of one of the doors. That new room was extremely vast, but there wasn't a single person inside. There was only blood stains on the ground, which meant that people had died here, but the bodies had disappeared. Lin Feng didn't stop there. His silhouette flickered again and he continued to another door to check another room. Nobody here either. Lin Feng frowned. He suddenly felt even less at ease. There were very few people, which meant that many of them were already dead. Lin Feng was extremely scared that something might have happened to Meng Qing. His silhouette flickered through the many rooms inside the illusion. Even when coming across other people, he just continued his search, and those people didn't provoke him either. After all, Lin Feng was very well known. Even though those people might have desired to fight with him, they didn't gamble when their life was at stake. It wasn't worth it. How come I can't find her? Lin Feng had already been to 20 rooms. but he still couldn't find Meng Qing. He was becoming more and more anxious and worried. We were 32 people when we entered the illusion, but there are so many rooms. Maybe there is a very low chance of encountering her, but I don't believe that after going to every single room, I still won't find her. Lin Feng was stupefied. His silhouette flickered again. Are you looking for that girl? Asked a voice from behind him. There was a figure leaning against the wall inside the room. That person was looking at Lin Feng with a resplendent smile. Lin Feng stopped walking and looked at that person. It was Yunfei Yang. Yunfei Yang had said that he was from Duanren City, so Lin Feng had conflicting thoughts on what he should think about him. Do you know where she is? Asked Lin Feng to Yunfei Yang. Yunfei Yang smiled and shook his head. I don't, but I do know that you probably won't be able to find her. Lin Feng frowned, a cold light ran through his eyes as he asked, What do you mean? Of course, I am only guessing, but you have been to every single room and you still haven't found her, that's obvious. You should probably hurry up. Said Yunfei Yang, smiling as before. He looked so sluggish and bored that it made Lin Feng frown even more firmly. His eyes also grew colder as before. Lin Feng didn't look at Yunfei Yang again and continued to move through all the rooms one more time. He came across many people, including Ling Tian's fellow disciple, but they did not fight each other. Lin Feng's top priority was to find Meng Qing. Lin Feng also saw Ling Tian, but they didn't provoke each other either. A short while after, the look on Lin Feng's face grew extremely worried. He went to every room and ended up back in the same place. What Yunfei Yang said was really happening. He was still leaning against the wall and he hadn't moved in the slightest. When he saw Lin Feng come back, he didn't look surprised at all. He only smiled and said, It seems like I was right. The Nine Dragon Palace deserves its reputation. Nine Dragon Palace. Lin Feng was stupefied. He looked at Yunfei Yang and said, You know what's going on here, right? Yunfei Yang nodded indifferently and said, I know that they don't want you to find her. So everything you try inside the illusion will be in vain. A dangerous light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. Someone didn't want him to find Meng Qing. Lin Feng opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but Yunfei Yang interrupted him. No need to speak, I know what you want to say. I will go, but you cannot come with me, otherwise I cannot guarantee that I will be able to find her. After saying that, Yunfei Yang immediately left. Lin Feng was surprised and watched his back as he disappeared. He wanted to follow him but forced himself to remain. Lin Feng had the feeling that Yunfei Yang was being honest and he didn't feel like he was being lied to. Who doesn't want me to find Meng Qing? Thought Lin Feng with an extremely cold expression in his eyes. This illusion was created by the man by the throne. He was controlling everything, so it must be him. Maybe they were really trying to prevent him from finding Meng Qing. Apart from Meng Qing, I haven't seen Shi Qiong either. Thought Lin Feng suddenly. Shi Qiong was extremely strong, the probability of him dying was extremely low. Maybe Shi Qiong and Meng Qing had encountered each other. Lin Feng didn't dare think about it, maybe that would really happen. Besides, he was part of the Imperial City and Shi Qiong was an officer of the Imperial City Guards. Shi Qiong even dared rush to Duan Xian Ye's living quarters and cause trouble, which meant that he had a very important and influential background in the Imperial City. All those things could explain everything. Lin Feng felt extremely nervous. Besides, outside of the illusion, people could see everything clearly, which stupefied them. It was actually exactly the way Yunfei Yang described the situation. They didn't want Lin Feng to find Meng Qing, and the crowd could clearly see that the different rooms of the palace continued moving around, and each time that Lin Feng was about to reach Meng Qing, the rooms abruptly changed position. Therefore, Lin Feng never had the opportunity to enter the same room. In the illusion, people had the impression that they were in a huge room, but to the people outside of the illusion, they could see how small and narrow each room actually was. All those rooms constituted a pattern of magical squares, and everybody seemed like they were only one step away from the other. The girl with Lin Feng is terrifying and dangerous. When the crowd saw Meng Qing and Shi Qiong's battle, they saw how incredibly strong Meng Qing was, but Shi Qiong was still stronger and he had a clear advantage over her. "You're so shameless!" shouted someone on the lake, which broke the silence. Everybody was stupefied and turned towards that person. It was a young man, but he was audacious. He was insulting the person who was controlling the illusion. "Since you created this as a test, why are you not letting things happen without influencing them? Why are you preventing Lin Feng from seeing Meng Qing and Shi Qiong? You're too shameless." When Duan Feng saw that Meng Qing had been injured, his facial expression became ice cold. He couldn't help but loudly voice his opinion. The man looked at the ground and glanced at Duan Feng indifferently while smiling coldly. "I am the one controlling the illusion, so I can do as I wish. Besides, I am helping Lin Feng by doing this. If he encountered Shi Qiong, he would die," said the man calmly before adding, "Besides, since when does a little boy like you have the right to open their mouth and tell me what I have to do? Get lost." While talking, the man released a monstrous pure qi which immediately rushed through the air. In a flash, it arrived in front of Duan Feng. Duan Feng pulled a long face, but instead of moving back, he threw himself at it. He joined his hands and released his pure qi which bombarded the atmosphere. Boom! Duan Feng's wasn't strong enough to compete. The pure qi passed through Duan Feng's attack and crashed onto his body, which caused Duan Feng to cough up blood. His body was also blown away and he crashed onto the ground. His face was deathly pale. "Old fool!" Duan Feng raised his head and insulted again. From behind his back, his spirit was released. The energy of the sealed doors was growing stronger and stronger. Sealed doors spirit. The man was surprised. He fixedly stared at Duan Feng for a while and then quickly looked behind him towards the golden throne. Surprisingly, it was a sealed doors spirit. That was the blood spirit of the imperial clan. "Your family name is Duan?" asked the man. "Why do you care? Old fool!" cursed Duan Feng again. "Humph, since your family name is Duan, I will not kill you," grinned the man, and he then ignored Duan Feng. Chapter 427, Cold Heart. Inside the illusion, two cultivators were locked in an intense battle. Meng Qing's face was covered with blood, but the coldness she released from her body was becoming increasingly powerful. The room was slowly being covered by a layer of ice, sending a piercing chill to the bone. The cold air was becoming more brutal with each passing moment. "You are very stubborn. I have broken through to the fourth Xian Qi layer. In terms of strength and power, Lin Feng is not my equal. What is the downside to being intimate with me? Do you want me to use force?" said Shi Qiong slowly while looking at Meng Qing. Meng Qing had a touching and moving expression in her eyes. She was very stubborn and tenacious. Besides, she still looked high-spirited and determined. Shi Qiong initially didn't like Meng Qing. He liked Duan Xinyi. He just wanted to play with Meng Qing. He wanted to have fun with Lin Feng's lover and make Lin Feng lose face. However, he was starting to like her more and more. If Meng Qing could become his woman, that would be great. They were a good match in his eyes. Of course, that feeling was not mutually shared. When Meng Qing heard Shi Qiong, she released an even stronger ice qi. The power was also growing more brutal, as if the atmosphere was going to freeze. "Stop being so obstinate. You cannot compete with me, and don't count on anyone coming to save you because nobody can," said Shi Qiong in a cold and detached tone when he sensed that Meng Qing's ice qi was growing more intense. "So that's how it is. An officer of the Imperial City Guards likes to take advantage of other people's women." A sluggish voice sounded which stupefied Shi Qiong. Immediately after, he saw someone open the door of the room and slowly enter. "Ha!" Shi Qiong frowned when he saw the person who entered. Immediately after, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Who do you think you are to intervene in my affairs?" said Shi Qiong coldly. Immediately after, he took a step forwards and released a monstrous qi which rushed through the atmosphere towards Yun Fei Yang. Die! Shouted Shi Qiong furiously. A terrifying deadly energy had enveloped Shi Qiong's body. Shi Qiong planned to kill him for involving himself in something which had nothing to do with him. Yunfei Yang looked at Shi Qiong, who was moving closer and closer to him. Suddenly, the smile on his face disappeared and he released a shockingly sharp qi which created a storm around him. His clothes were fluttering under the power of the storm. Die! Shi Qiong shouted while punching forwards. A dangerous light could be seen in Yunfei Yang's eyes. Not only did he not retreat, but he charged forwards instead. He raised his fist and also unleashed a terrifying punch towards Shi Qiong. Boom! A terrifying wind was blasted in every direction. Their fists collided with the force of a mountain, and they remained absolutely still. Their clothes were still fluttering in the wind and they were both looking at the other person's eyes. Get lost! Yunfei Yang slightly moved. He took an extremely small step forward, but the qi and force which he had condensed emerged from his fist. Shi Qiong's body was instantly projected backwards by a few steps. How strong! Yunfei Yang's strength was terrifying. Shi Qiong was unable to harm Yunfei Yang, and on the contrary, he was the one who was sent flying backwards. Shi Qiong was full of confidence when it came to his cultivation, but at that moment, in front of everyone, he had just been projected backwards by an absolute stranger, someone whom nobody even knew about. Shi Qiong wasn't the only one who was left astonished, the people outside of the illusion were also astonished. Yunfei Yang seemed like he was the most mysterious person of all. He didn't fight, but when he did, it was terrifying. Shi Qiong had been forced backwards by such a small movement. Even though it didn't mean that he was definitely stronger than Shi Qiong, it at least proved that his explosive power was much more tyrannical than that of Shi Qiong. The fog of the illusion started to move through the atmosphere. The full moon still looked lonely and desolate, but it still hung beautifully in the sky. A few silhouettes started to appear in the crowd's field of vision. They didn't look like distant figures any longer. The light of the full moon was shining down upon those silhouettes and the calm lake beneath them. The fog had dispersed and the illusion had disappeared. The people who were inside before were now standing in front of the crowd. There were 6 people. From the 32 people who had entered the illusion, only 6 were left. Shi Qiong, Yunfei Yang, Lin Feng, Meng Qing, as well as Ling Tian and his fellow disciple. The others were all killed, whether it be the people of the Wanshou sect or the Yu clan. All the geniuses who belonged to those groups were dead. That was an unprecedented loss for them. Besides, the 6 people left were also the strongest people from the group. Everybody had seen their strength with their own eyes. However, Ling Tian was the one who had killed the most people. Nobody had dared to provoke Shi Qiong, but Meng Qing fought against him. She hadn't spared any effort and managed to suppress him until Yunfei Yang appeared and forced her back. Lin Feng's strength was obvious from the ambush on him. These 6 people remained firm and tenacious and managed to come out of the illusion alive. That was already enough evidence that they were extremely gifted cultivators. Unfortunately, the other geniuses were all dead and were used as stepping stones for the surviving cultivators. A short time before, they had all been high-spirited and full of life. They all wished that everybody would remember their name throughout Shuiyu, but reality was cruel. No matter how strong they had been, their opponents were even stronger. The moonlight was shining down upon Lin Feng's body. He turned around and looked towards Meng Qing. He could see that Meng Qing's face was deathly pale and there was traces of blood around her mouth, which sent a shiver of fear down his spine. Meng Qing! Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and he immediately landed next to Meng Qing. He took out a pill and put it in Meng Qing's mouth. Meng Qing opened her mouth and swallowed the pill. When she saw Lin Feng, the ice around her body disappeared in a flash, and a brilliant and magnificent smile appeared on her face. Next to that smile, it seemed like the beauty of the moon didn't exist any longer. She looked so beautiful in Lin Feng's eyes. The crowd also found that smile to be so beautiful that it made their hearts accelerate. What a beautiful woman! Her clothes were whiter than snow, and the moonlight was shining upon the fine gauze on her face. She really looked like a celestial being. When Lin Feng saw that Meng Qing's cheeks were regaining a trace of color, he slowly turned around and looked towards Yunfei Yang and Shi Qiong. He only glanced at Yunfei Yang for a second and then looked at Shi Qiong with a merciless glare. Lin Feng's face was filled with pure killing intent. As if Shi Qiong had sensed Lin Feng's glare, he turned around and looked at Lin Feng. "You don't deserve to be her lover, she should be my woman." Sword. Lin Feng ignored what Shi Qiong said and immediately moved forwards while slowly raising his hand. A whistling sound emerged in the air around Lin Feng. Lin Feng suddenly condensed a terrifying sword energy and pure qi into a sword which materialized in his hand. Shi Qiong frowned and groaned. At the same time, he also released a powerful qi which moved straight towards Lin Feng. Both their energies collided in the air. What a terrifying power! Shi Qiong's strength is monstrous, thought the people in the crowd while looking impatient. Lin Feng and Shi Qiong were both geniuses, they had both passed the first test. Finally, the crowd had the opportunity to see them fight, so they were impatient to see the outcome of the battle. But Shi Qiong had broken through to the fourth Xian Qi layer and Lin Feng had only broken through to the second Xian Qi layer. Even though he was able to kill cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer, fighting against Shi Qiong, who was of the fourth Xian Qi layer, was a much more difficult task. The crowd thought that the situation could be worse for Lin Feng. However, Yunfei Yang, the mysterious man, was able to send Shi Qiong flying back, even though he was at the fourth Xian Qi layer. Yunfei Yang must be extremely strong. "That's enough," said the old man at that moment while glancing at Shi Qiong and Lin Feng. He then said slowly, "You six, thanks to your determination and tenacity, have passed the first test. You are all quite good. With the 8 high officials, you are now 14 people. Now, all of you can exchange a few pointers. Let's see who the strongest ones in this group are. You can now freely fight against whomever you wish," said the old man indifferently, which astonished everybody. They could fight against whomever they wished. The battles of the 6 remaining people and the 8 high officials were definitely going to be incredible. The crowd was bursting with excitement. People rarely had the opportunity to see the 8 high officials in battle. Not many people knew exactly what their cultivation levels were these days. Lin Feng glanced at the old man in a cold and detached way. Yunfei Yang was right. If he wasn't able to find Meng Qing, it was because of the old man who was controlling the illusion. The old man had done it on purpose. As if the old man had seen Lin Feng looking at him, he said coldly, "The people who are at weaker cultivation levels should fight against the other weak ones first. It would be a pity for them to die at the beginning fighting a strong opponent." The old man was obviously mocking Lin Feng because Shi Qiong's cultivation level was higher than Lin Feng by 2 whole layers. Chapter 428, The Flood Dragon Warp Fist. "Your name is Yunfei Yang?" Shi Qiong asked after the old man finished talking. Shi Qiong was fixedly staring at Yunfei Yang. He knew that the crowd below had been able to see them in the illusion for a moment, so they had seen how Yunfei Yang had made him move back. They knew about it, so Shi Qiong felt humiliated. He had to take his revenge. Shi Qiong wasn't in a hurry to kill Lin Feng, he was only in the second Xian Qi layer. Killing Lin Feng would be easy. The only thing that scared him a little bit was Lin Feng's Black Lotus. "Indeed," replied Yunfei Yang indifferently. He looked sluggish again, which gave the impression that he was despised by Shi Qiong. Such an indolent attitude made Shi Qiong pull a long face, and he said, "We will fight first." Yunfei Yang smiled and glanced at Lin Feng. He then said, "It seems like I will be the first one to fight." Yunfei Yang made a step to immediately land above the lake. His clothes were fluttering in the wind, his sluggish appearance disappeared and sharp lights started flashing in his eyes. "Come. Let's fight," said Shi Qiong, moving towards the air above the lake as well while releasing an insane amount of qi. His entire body seemed like it was filled with infinite strength. Lin Feng looked cold and detached. Since Shi Qiong and Yunfei Yang were fighting first, he had to wait for his turn. "Let's see your strength," said Shi Qiong in a cold and detached way. In the illusion, Yun Fei Yang had pushed Shi Qiong backwards. Shi Qiong couldn't forgive him. "As you wish." Yun Fei Yang's hair and clothes were fluttering in the wind. Everybody was looking at Yun Fei Yang, who said he came from Duanren City. Apparently, his strength was enough to face the most outstanding disciples of the country. At that moment, he really had the air of an extremely strong cultivator, natural and unrestrained. Shi Qiong released a terrifying strength with his pure qi. A hideous and ferocious-looking flood dragon then appeared and rushed towards Yun Fei Yang as if it wanted to eat him alive. Flood dragon, warp fist. Yun Fei Yang's eyes looked ice-cold, he looked a bit surprised as well. Warp fist was a D-level skill of medium quality. It was like a dragon filled with infinite physical strength, it had a monstrous explosive power. Shi Qiong condensed his pure qi. At that moment, the flood dragon had its own body and was accumulating its own type of energy. Kacha, kacha. The sound of cracking bones emerged from Yun Fei Yang's body. They suddenly saw his Chongpao flutter in an even more violent fashion as the whistling sounds in the air became even more intense. His entire body looked like it contained unlimited strength which dated back to ancient times. It was shocking. "What are those?" wondered people in the crowd when they saw the powerful skills. Both of them were extremely strong and fast. Duanren City has given birth to such a strong cultivator. Shi Qiong's facial expression looked ice-cold, he then added, "Since you are an expert at using physical strength, let's see how you plan to receive my fist." While talking, Shi Qiong's flood dragon started to rise up in the air. It looked extraordinary. "As you wish," said Yun Fei Yang as if he only knew how to repeat those 3 words again and again. Shi Qiong could just fight as he wished, did it matter to him? At that moment, Yun Fei Yang's qi was also rising into the air. Roar! The flood dragon roared. Shi Qiong took a huge step and released his brutal qi and his flood dragon started moving towards Yun Fei Yang. Rage! Yun Fei Yang took a few steps forward and a furious sea of energy surged into his hand and condensed. It was a spectacular sight to behold. Then, his deadly qi was released. Those 2 people stepped forwards, the earth and the sky seemed to shake under their pressure. It was scary and majestic. What a monstrous strength! Thought the crowd while looking at those 2 people's steps. That battle was breathtaking, the people's hearts started pounding. Those 2 people were at the same level, they had both broken through to the 4th Xian Qi layer. The most terrifying was that their explosive power was much more brutal than that of a normal cultivator of the 4th Xian Qi layer. If Lin Feng fought against Shi Qiong, he would definitely lose. Some people suddenly thought. Shi Qiong's strength was way too monstrous. If he had a cultivator of the 3rd Xian Qi layer in front of him, he would kill them in a flash. Roar! Another roar spread through the atmosphere. Those extremely loud rumbling sounds painfully pierced through some people's eardrums, it seemed like the entire atmosphere was vibrating. The atmosphere above the lake had been invaded by a qi storm and those terrifying energies had completely enveloped Shi Qiong and Yun Fei Yang's bodies. Who had won? Who had lost? A few moments after, the explosive energy dispersed. The 2 fighters had moved backwards. Shi Qiong's clothes were ripped apart and some qi was undulating around him. Yun Fei Yang's hair looked extremely messy and his face had turned deathly pale. Both their mouths showed signs of blood. They were fixedly staring at each other. As expected, the D-level skill of medium quality, the Flood Dragon Warp Fist is extremely strong. Thought Yun Fei Yang. Shi Qiong was fixedly staring at Yun Fei Yang and thought, there is some strange dark energy inside his deadly energy, such a terrifying dark energy. If I hadn't paid attention, then that attack would have severely injured me. The 2 fighters were discovering how shocking their mutual strengths were. That's enough. You 2 are incredible geniuses, go and have a rest, said the old man slowly. At that moment Lin Feng took a step in the air and said in a cold and detached way, "Wait, wait." People were stupefied. After having witnessed Shi Qiong's monstrous strength, did Lin Feng still want to fight against him? Would he dare? "You want to fight?" asked Shi Qiong in an ice-cold way while fixedly staring at Lin Feng. The latter wanted to die. "Indeed," replied Lin Feng in an ice-cold way. He wouldn't be able to set his mind at ease if he didn't kill Shi Qiong. "Humph," groaned the old man before saying, "If you want to die, you don't need to be so impatient. Besides, Shi Qiong just finished one battle and you want to take advantage of him because he is exhausted. Let him have a rest. If you want to fight, you can fight against somebody else first." Lin Feng coldly glanced at the old man. He was clearly protecting Shi Qiong. "Since it's that way, I will fight against somebody else," replied Lin Feng indifferently. The old man looked glum. He glanced at Shi Qiong and Yunfei Yang and said, "You two can come back." Shi Qiong coldly glanced at Lin Feng, his silhouette flickered and he left the area, followed by Yunfei Yang. Above the lake, there was only Lin Feng left and the old man who was overseeing the competition. Lin Feng wanted to fight but... Against whom? "Against whom will you fight? Hurry up and speak," said the old man coldly. Everybody was looking forward to seeing whom Lin Feng would choose as an opponent. Shi Qiong couldn't fight against him. Yunfei Yang seemed to be on Lin Feng's side so he wasn't going to choose him. The only people left were the 8 high officials and the 2 people of the Ling clan. Ling Tian was monstrously strong. He had killed the most people in the illusion. But would Lin Feng choose a woman as a first opponent? Lin Feng then glanced around at everybody. He had already met 5 of the 8 high officials before, the 2nd-ranked Yu Tianming, the 3rd-ranked Wu Qing of the Wanshou sect, the 4th-ranked Duan Wuya as well as the 6th and 7th-ranked, respectively Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui. He had never seen the strongest of the group, Duan Wu Dao, and it was said that the 5th and 8th-ranked were brothers from the Yu clan. At that moment, Chu Zhanpeng, on the side of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, was looking at Lin Feng in a despising way, while releasing his killing intent. "After that battle, I still want to fight against Shi Qiong so I will fight against Chu Zhanpeng later," thought Lin Feng. Finally, he looked at Ling Tian. Ling Tian was stupefied and suddenly looked ice-cold. Lin Feng seemingly wanted to choose him as a first opponent. Ling Tian and Lin Feng's battle was, in any case, unavoidable. "Get your ass over here," said Lin Feng indifferently, which stupefied Ling Tian. Lin Feng was extremely rude when talking to him. The crowd was astonished as well. Even when facing authentically outstanding geniuses, Lin Feng was still as shocking as ever. Those people weren't like those few people of the Wanshou sect. Each and every single one of them was a dazzling and glorious genius. They were the most outstanding young people of Shuiyu. Ling Tian pulled a long face and stepped forwards, immediately arriving in front of Lin Feng, while releasing some ice-cold energy. The full moon was as brilliant as before, its dreary light was shining upon the 2 fighters, which gave people a sad and lonely feeling. That night, some geniuses were rising, but many others were falling. Those extremely strong geniuses were showing how powerful they were by taking other geniuses' lives, and only with enough bloodshed would they be able to look down upon Shuiyu. The rise and fall of the geniuses was happening in front of millions of cultivators from Shuiyu. Lin Feng had surprised the entire country many times, but on that night, would he be able to continue? Or would he fall? Everybody was impatient to see his first battle. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.